Chapter 165. On the first day of the siege, the catapult tactics of both sides had already begun. The stones in the sky burned with flames and flew around like meteors. From time to time, huge stones would collide with each other in the sky. Flaming stones rained down from the sky, and thunderous explosions resounded through the sky. The Black Lava Nation did not choose to attack. There were not many soldiers guarding the city walls in Rhine City. Everyone hid in a safe place and waited. They waited for the moment when all the catapults were destroyed. On the third day of the siege, the catapults of both sides were continuously damaged. Whether they were smashed or worn out, the number of stones in the sky decreased. Huge stones embedded in the ground appeared in front of the Black Lava Nation's formation. The originally sturdy roads and grass were all scorched black. Countless buildings in Rhine City were damaged. Dozens of billowing black smoke rose into the sky. Many people were putting out water. Or rather, those shouting to put out the fire were just trying to lure the Black Lava Nation to attack. In the night, rocks streaked across the night sky, almost lighting up the entire battlefield. An arrow tower in Rhine City was smashed by a huge stone and collapsed. A catapult at the Black Lava Nation's catapult camp was also smashed by a huge stone and exploded. A few unlucky catapults also died without a complete corpse. On the seventh day, the catapult tactics continued. The entire city walls of Rhine City were still full of holes. However, anyone could see that this was not a big deal to Rhine City. Fortunately, out of the 20 sentry towers on the city walls of Rhine City, 13 had been smashed. On the 15th day, the number of catapults in the sky had already become sparse. Marquis Sauls did not choose to attack in this situation. On the 20th day, a piece of news suddenly spread in the Iron Nation. A noble who seemed to be completely loyal to Gerda led the army that was supposed to protect the nation and suddenly attacked their allies. In an instant, the rebel army was like a hot knife through butter. At the same time, the internal strife in the Iron Nation completely broke out. Some nobles who had not died or were completely loyal to Gerda brought their own armies or private soldiers to rebel. That afternoon, the Black Lava Nation ordered the entire army to attack fiercely. It did not last for long. After both sides had lost 1,000 men, Marquis Sauls sounded the gong to retreat. However, for the next 3 days, Sauls continuously gave the order for the entire army to charge. There were 6 real and fake attacks. In just 3 days, the defenders of Rhine City had become somewhat exhausted because of this tactic. But this kind of tactic felt good. It took Marquis Sauls 6 days. However, Gerda did not dare to take the initiative to attack. This was because the internal strife within the country was definitely not a result of the noble's telepathy. This was definitely a conspiracy. He had already sent out 2 legions to quell the chaos. Therefore, within a short period of time, the number of soldiers defending the city did not exceed the Black Lava Nation by too much, although they would lose more men if they attacked the city. However, in this world with battle aura and magic, there were many ways to defend and attack. If one side really had the upper hand, the war would likely end in a short period of time. It was highly likely that they would be able to gain the upper hand with a single charge of the entire army. Then, they would advance step by step and occupy the entire Rhine City. In front of the boundless army formation, William looked at Rhine City and muttered to himself, "In my previous life, the matter of the rebel army would have happened a long time later, but it has happened at this crucial point. It looks like the Black Lava Dukedom has also taken action, thus delaying some time. Even Hander has appeared. There's no reason why Lancet wouldn't appear." For the first time, William felt a sense of fatal danger, so he didn't take the risk and charge up the city wall. An advanced professional, in this kind of low-level battlefield, there was no doubt that he could defeat tens of thousands of people. Even if he had legendary bloodline and was extremely handsome, he didn't dare to pull on Lancet's sexy stubble. This old fellow would not attack him just because he was handsome. He could try fighting a middle-level beginner, but this was only against the small merman, and middle-level fighting against an advanced would undoubtedly feel like he was asking for death. Of course, he could also fight against small mermen and goblins. Luckily, Lancet and Hander only have Grandmaster bloodline. If they were epic or legendary, then they would be the key factors in deciding the outcome of this war. Now, I can only hope that Lancet and Hander will perish together, just like in my previous life. Although it's a little unrealistic, a battle between experts usually ends in an instant. In particular, I still remember Lancet's perish of heaven and earth, right? William silently pondered. It was very difficult for him to reach level 70 in a short period of time. Now, if he wanted to level up once, he would need more than 700,000 experience points. In addition, he had not leveled up his skills to the max. To become an advanced professional, he would need at least more than 6 million experience points. It was simply unbearable. The difficulty of the instant's dungeon crystals was currently very high, and there were not many benefits. He could only bear with it. Then I can only use underhanded methods. William glanced at Lautner. He asked his trusted subordinates to guard the commander flag and not to charge. He silently gripped the illusion scroll tightly and quietly left with Alec. He had to quickly settle this war. Moreover, he had to secretly control these two nations. Although the difficulty was insane, William had already made many preparations. The magic scrolls that he had gotten from Moses a long time ago were the key to this. What was formulation? Before using the illusion scroll, he had to first choose a person as his target. He could then become that person. This was a treasure that could only be created by an advanced illusionist. If the illusion scroll had a 1-year time limit, then only an illusionist enchanter could create it. In other words, William's method was to replace the crown prince with a leopard. As for how to do it, it was not the time to say it yet. He had long known that the darkness invasion would occur. In version 2.0, no matter who won or lost, unless they preserved a total of 40 legions, the two nations would die at the hands of the dark creatures. So, he wanted to end the war in a short period of time and take away most of the youths. As for those who were left behind, other than escaping to the Grand Dukedom in the north, there was no other way out. It was not that he did not want to help, but that he was powerless faced with an absolute number of darkness creatures. Even if he became an advanced, he could only guard one place. At that time, he could only use the Puppet King to order all the citizens to head north at that time. The City of Dawn would become the only source of light in this land. Just as he was about to leave, a bugle horn sounded. The sound of drums reverberated throughout the battlefield. Everyone charge. Chapter 166. Nedrick Blackstone wore a shiny black armor. Accompanied by the sound of the war drums, he slowly walked to the front of the formation. He turned his head and looked at every soldier of the Black Lava Nation. Then, he took the Black Lava Nation's commander flag from his personal guard. In front of everyone, he raised the 10-meter-tall commander flag and smashed it on the ground. War! In the name of the king, I instigate this war. In the name of the king, I inform everyone that the Iron Nation's hundreds of years of invasion will be defeated today. Nedrick raised the commander flag with one hand. His voice echoed throughout the battlefield. I, Nedrick Blackstone, am with you. War! 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 The tens of thousands of Black Lava Nation soldiers roared. Their ferocious roars echoed throughout the heavens and earth. They roared with every step they took. Their voices were loud and clear. The clouds dispersed. The final battle. It was here. The catapults on both sides were in a damaged state. There were fewer and fewer siege towers on the Rhine city walls. There were also fewer suitable positions for the heavy-duty crossbows. However, the siege towers of the Black Lava Nation were activated for the first time. Every siege tower was crowded with people. The shield bearers were already prepared to charge and break through the enemy lines. There were simple ladders at the bottom of the siege towers for people to climb up. There were also 2 heavy-duty crossbows on the wooden boards at the top. They continuously fired at the enemies on the city walls. Many large magical beasts pulled or pushed dozens of siege towers that were more than 20 meters tall forward. Kill them for me. The roars from above Rhine City did not stop. They adjusted the positions of the heavy-duty crossbows and wanted to kill the magical beasts. Activate the last of the catapults and destroy those siege towers. What? If they are broken, repair them. If there are no more stones, throw those damaged buildings. Do you know how to demolish things? There was not only one commander on the battlefield. A group of people were shouting crazily. However, there were many shield bearers in front of the magical beasts. They were prepared to sacrifice themselves at all times to preserve the magical beasts' lives. One after another, heavy arrows whistled through the air. Shield bearers died in front of the magical beasts so that the siege towers could advance further. The players had long carried siege ladders and charged towards the city walls in an orderly manner. They chose the two sides of the city walls, the weakest areas of defense. Only the Iron Nation players were guarding those areas, dozens of offensive and defensive battles. The two dukedoms were already used to the endless fighting between the players, so they might as well let the two sides exhaust each other. After all, there would always be an exchange of blows. With the arrival of the final battle, the mages of both sides finally appeared. Under the protection of the shield bearers, they kept chanting spells, and rays of colorful light shone from their staffs. The attackers suffered heavy casualties. More and more people were shot down by the rain of arrows. A powerful spell would send more than a dozen people flying, and even the sturdy siege ladders would be destroyed. Swoosh! A flaming boulder streaked across the sky and smashed into an arrow tower. An earth elemental magician walked out and slammed the magic staff in his right hand onto the ground. Rich earth elemental elements rapidly gathered and formed a huge defensive barrier in a short period of time. The two collided. The rumbling sounds continued to ring out. The entire Archer Tower shook and tilted, but it was not destroyed in the end. However, before the mage could retreat, a heavy arrow pierced through his chest. Even the shield bearer behind him, who was trying to protect him, was nailed to the ground. The Black Lava Dukedom could not drag on any longer. If they waited for the rebellion in the Iron Dukedom to be quelled, then the scales of victory would be far away from Nedrick. He was the king of the Black Lava Dukedom. He personally came to the battlefield. He carried the commander flag and stood at the front line. This was the greatest encouragement for the Black Lava Dukedom. In less than half an hour, the battle had reached its climax. A siege tower was placed on the city wall, and dozens of elite soldiers pushed the wooden planks on both sides of the wall. With an indomitable roar, the shield bearers charged towards the soldiers of the Iron Dukedom and started the bloodiest battle. Every inch of the 3,000-meter-long city wall was filled with soldiers or corpses on the ground. At such a time, some grandmasters and epics had powerful skills, but they did not dare to use them recklessly. Otherwise, they would easily hurt their allies. However, they were still the most dazzling existences in the battle. There are all sorts of bosses on the 3,000-meter-long city wall. All of them were using their lives to protect the dignity and glory of the nation. Diablo charged up the city wall. After setting off a wave of metal waves, he was stopped by whales. One had high attack power, while the other had high defense. Both sides were locked in a fierce battle. Rampaging Dragon had also stabilized his position. He used his body to block countless counterattacks. His body was covered in arrows, but he did not care about them at all. He swung his fists and sent enemies flying. He only wanted to use this opportunity to make more people charge at him. However, Gerdanaces personally attacked. He was like a dark knight standing on the city wall. When a siege tower approached, he dodged the heavy arrows and jumped into it. The endless stream of Black Lava Dukedom soldiers were like babies in front of this legendary boss. They were all sent flying by his black battle energy and fell from the siege tower. Nedrick Blackstone was the ruler of a nation. When he saw this scene, he wanted William to hold the fort. But at the crucial moment, he could not find the mercenary team leader, D*M in it. You disappeared at the crucial moment. Why didn't I see you charging up the city wall? Nedrick cursed angrily. He knew that the Dawn mercenary team could not be trusted, especially that D*MN William. He dared to slack off so openly. I'll teach you a lesson sooner or later. Nedrick Blackstone cursed and turned to look at the commander of the Royal Guards, Renekton. Stall Gerdanaces. Don't let him wreak havoc on the battlefield. "What about your safety, your majesty?" Renekton frowned. He did not want to leave. "It's not a big deal. Leave behind 500 royal guards and take the rest." Nedrick narrowed his eyes. He looked at Hander, who had not made a move yet. He knew only a battle between two high-grade professions would determine the outcome of the battle. Furthermore, who dared to come here to kill him? How suicidal would they be? Soldiers against soldiers. Generals against generals. This was a battle between the gods. There could be fewer soldiers, but there could not be fewer high-level combatants. It could even be said that as long as there was an additional high-level combatant, they could pull the victory of the battle towards themselves. This was also the reason why Nedrick had decisively started the battle with William as his reinforcements. He was even confident that he could win. But it was now. Hander attacked. He took a step forward. His speed became faster and faster. Just as he was about to reach the city wall, he suddenly swung his sword upwards. Bang! A violent shock wave spread in all directions. The siege ladders on both sides were smashed apart. Many people cried out in pain as they fell to the ground. Hander retreated tens of meters, leaving a deep dent in the ground. A figure retreated to the side of the city gate. It was Lancet, who was wielding a long blade. He coldly laughed. "You can't wait any longer? Is that so? I just can't help but want to kill you." Hander held his single-handed sword. He took a deep breath and took a step forward. Instantly, the two of them started fighting again. It was right below the city wall. Within a radius of 100 meters, there was a dazzling battle energy. No one dared to go near. Chapter 167. The combat power of a high-level professional was very strong. Not only did they have extremely strong lethality and long-range battle energy skills, but they also had the ability to float for a short period of time. In this world of gods, he could be called a master. They were masters in the early stages of the game, but they were trash in the later stages. However, as long as a middle-level professional had a fast horse, he did not have to worry about a master catching up to him. Cough, cough, cough. This was the truth. High-level professionals flew very, very slowly. This ability to float for a short period of time was not very useful in attacking the city, as there were heavy arrows to restrain them. It was better to rely on speed to climb up the city walls. However, for middle-level professionals who did not have any long-range abilities, it was a one-sided battle. Lancet had already arrived at the bottom of the battlefield, but none of the Black Lava Legion soldiers dared to go forward to die. His and Hander's combat power was on par, and they were evenly matched. War was about constantly throwing away one's life, throwing away one's life, and throwing away one's life again. The high-intensity siege lasted until nightfall before both sides could take a break. On the second day, the soldiers from both nations fought again. Not many of the high-level combatants from both sides died. They did not fight to the death and returned to the army to rest to conserve their strength. However, more than 10,000 ordinary soldiers died. Countless players had died. Currently, there were many players near the commander's flag who did not want to participate anymore. If it were not for the silver coins, contribution points, and experience points, they would have planted the commander's flag to pass the time. This was because His Highness, who was the happiest in the early stages of the war, had disappeared. Fortunately, some guild leaders and professional players knew that their leader had something to do. They took the initiative to boost morale and lead the players to charge forward. Now, the balance of the war was gradually tilting towards the Black Lava Nation. There was no other reason. It was because the Black Lava Nation had two regular legions. These were the reinforcements that Marquis Chris brought. One of the legions was Marquis Chris' own legion, and the other was a legion formed by the personal guards of some nobles. Nedrick was initially very suspicious of them. However, when he saw the reinforcements rushing up the city walls, he was moved. He did not expect the nobles who were once loyal to other princes to be so kind as to send their personal guards to the battlefield. Nedrick was relieved, and he even kindly invited Marquis Chris to accompany him. Marquis Chris, who was in his 50s, did not hesitate when he saw the king being protected by 500 royal guards. He asked his 300 bodyguards to stand guard at the side and walk to the king alone. He nodded to the king respectfully and looked at the city wall seriously. The commander under my command is quite strong. I hope he can play a key role in the siege. That would be for the best. Nedric looked at the reinforcements of the two legions. Their combat strength was indeed average. Fortunately, the legion leaders of the two legions had decent combat strength and were able to stand firm on the city wall. They also had the ability to become fiercer and fiercer as the battle progressed. This really surprised Nedric. The king of the Black Lava Nation looked at the solemn Marquis Chris. He did not have much of an opinion of this old noble. Although he had supported the second prince in the beginning, he had personally delivered the second prince's head to Marquis Chris to show his loyalty. Of course, Nedric had never trusted these fellows. However, it was fine to let them watch over his home. After all, they did not dare to let the Iron Nation cross the river. Otherwise, everyone would be in trouble. Now that Marquis Chris had taken the initiative to help, it could be considered as a show of loyalty. He hoped that he would be able to get some benefits after defeating the Iron Nation. All of a sudden, Nedric wanted to laugh. Reports of victory kept coming in. The city walls of the Iron Nation kept falling. The chosen ones of the City of Dawn saw that they had the upper hand. They gathered their strength and launched a ferocious attack again. As an advanced master, Lancet and Hander were locked in battle. Both of them were covered in bloody wounds. Then, Lancet used a series of kicks and sent Hander flying. But just as Lancet was about to use the momentum to charge towards the city wall, whoosh! A lightning arrow with a fatal aura suddenly shot out from the hands of a soldier on the city wall. Lancet was shocked. He immediately raised his hand to block it. Bang! In the end, he did not manage to block it. Because of the huge impact, he fell back to the ground. In the blink of an eye, Hander, who had seized the opportunity, suddenly stabbed his sword at Lancet's back. Puffed. The long sword pierced through his heart from his back. Blood splattered nonstop. But before Hander could laugh, the ferocious Lancet stabbed himself with his long sword. The light from the sword pierced through his body and Hander's throat. The light from the sword pierced deep into his brain. The two high-grade professions were motionless. They stood tall on the battlefield, but both of them died here. This kind of situation was something that no one had ever imagined. But at this moment, both Gerdanaces and Nedric could not help but swallow their saliva. There was sorrow in their hearts, but there was also a sense of surprise. Because as people who wielded power, they liked to make use of this kind of high-level combat power, but they did not like this kind of extraordinary existence. Some people wanted to find the soldier who had shot the crucial arrow, but they could no longer find him. But those who were observant understood that the person who could shoot such a crucial arrow was definitely not an idiot. First of all, that arrow was not weak. Since he could force Lancet to retreat, it meant that he had the ability to injure an advanced professional. Moreover, he chose not to choose earlier or later, but to shoot the arrow at the instant when he was floating up the city wall. This meant that he had grasped the timing very well. He still had the strength, time, and energy to shoot the arrow. Just who was it that could choose such a position on the chaotic battle on the city wall? Such a timing was just right for Lancet to make a fatal mistake, causing him to perish together with Hander. Some of the more powerful fellows could not help but wonder, but they did not have the time to think further. Another arrow pierced through the air. Gerdanaces also sensed danger approaching, and he suddenly raised his head to dodge the arrow. But Renekton's long sword had already struck his body, causing him to splatter blood as he fell into the city. Gerdanaces sensed that the expert had made another move to help Yin twice. He did not hesitate to jump into the city, wanting to kill Gerdanaces. But what happened next surprised him. When both of them fell into the city, pairs of soul tentacles suddenly appeared from the ground, wrapping around both of them tightly. Renekton was unable to break free, and his eyes were filled with fear. Gerdanaces in front of him had soul magic, and he had resistance to soul manipulation. This kind of manipulation did not have much effect on him. In a short period of time, he broke free from manipulation and stabbed out with a slender black sword aura. Poochie! Renekton, who could not dodge, had a huge bloody hole pierced through his chest, and his heart exploded, but a transparent ghost arrow shot towards Gerdanaces' face, and a figure followed closely behind. At this moment, suddenly, thousands of people on the city wall shouted, "We won!" At this moment, King Nedrick of the Black Lava Nation could not help but take a few steps forward. Marquis Chris, who was behind him, suddenly pulled out his sword and pierced the back of his neck, the tip of the sword bursting out from his mouth. At that moment, everyone on the battlefield was dumbfounded at the same time. 3 miles behind the battlefield, in 2 tunnels, more than 200 elves appeared. They were protecting dozens of earth and metal mages. The mages found a place and used all sorts of earth magic on the ground collapse. It kept collapsing. Continuous use of earth magic. Thousands of meters of land were continuously collapsing. Then, the people here disappeared without a trace, but nobody knew. These collapsed places, they had crushed 4 legions. The 4 legions that could turn the tide. The tens of thousands of soldiers that decided the outcome of the battle would rot in the tunnels and slowly turn into bones. Chapter 168. Your Majesty, Your Majesty. The 500 personal guards were dumbfounded. They did not know that Marquis Chris, who was not very powerful, would kill the current king. Marquis Chris hugged Nedrick's corpse and turned around to retreat. He shouted, "Nedrick is a kingslayer. He poisoned the king and killed him. He only wanted the throne. He is not a real king. The king of the Black Lava Nation is there." The people at the bottom of the city wall looked in the direction of his hand. The second prince, who had been beheaded, had been revived. He walked out from the 300 personal guards. He was followed by a group of nobles, including Count Curry. The 500 royal guards gripped their swords tightly. They could not help but swallow their saliva. They looked at the dead Nedrick and then at the second prince, who was walking towards them. They looked at each other and knelt on one knee. "Greetings, second prince." The nobles looked at the royal guards resentfully. They seemed to be saying that they were unreasonable. In such a situation, the regicide was dead. Only the second prince was the real king. However, the young second prince shook his head. He said in a deep voice, "I faked my death to collect evidence of Nedrick's poisoning. I have found it. I did not expect Marquis Chris to be so impatient and kill this damned regicide." At this moment, the second prince sighed. He looked at the Black Eye Legion, who were in a mess. He said in a deep voice, "The bigger picture is, now is not the time to look at evidence. I hope that everyone can help me." Subsequently, he used his battle energy and shouted, "I, the king of the Black Lava Nation, am invincible. Kill." His voice reverberated throughout the battlefield. Out of the 300 personal guards behind him, 100 charged toward the city wall. When they reached the top of the city wall, everything was destroyed. Everything was destroyed. No matter who the enemy was or how many there were. No matter if the enemy was a player or an NPC. When the 100 personal guards raised their swords, their path was littered with corpses. None of them were a match for them. When the enemy used their weapons to slash at them, there were only sparks and their battle energy was broken. They could not even break their armor. However, these 100 burning warriors were like killing gods, wreaking havoc on the city walls. They were unstoppable and unstoppable. When the royal guard saw this, he was equally shocked. After hesitating for a while, he shouted, "The master of the Black Lava Nation is invincible." The battle between William and Gerdanasses was uninterrupted. The latter had suffered quite a heavy injury when he ambushed him, but he had not lost yet. But what the hell? He received the signal sent by the commanders before they died. That is, the Dark Path's army seemed to have been wiped out. The reason why Gerdanasses was confident in his victory was because he knew that if he sent out a few armies to ambush the back of the Black Lava Nation, he would open the city gates and launch an all-out assault. He would definitely be able to get rid of the many legions of the Black Lava Nation in one fell swoop, and he would have nothing to worry about. But in the end, not only was the underground passageway blocked, but there were also some traps set up, and there was an earth element spellcaster cutting off the way out. A total of 4 legions. He was crushed to death in the underground tunnel. Damn, there was SH*T on the road. No, it was like the SH*T had been poisoned. Gerdanasses couldn't imagine who could have leaked such a top-secret method of winning in the underground. He couldn't imagine who could have tricked them without anyone knowing. As such, The Iron Nation had lost. If Gerda made a decision in such a short time, he would have to flee. But he was already being targeted by William. Both of them arrived at a ruin. Huge rocks were scattered everywhere, and the walls were crooked. It seemed as though they were about to collapse. Gerda gradually stopped in his tracks. He looked up at the unstoppable 100 fire element warriors on the city walls. He suddenly understood. Everything was clear. The key reason why the scales of victory were tilted was because of William. Even the blocking of the underground passageway was the doing of the Lord of the City of Dawn. He could not help but laugh at himself. Undo your illusion. How can there be so many powerful fire element warriors in the Black Lava Nation? They are obviously dragons, blood warriors. Oh, an unfamiliar man wearing ordinary soldier armor laughed lightly. He did not care about Gerda's words. Instead, he charged forward again. But in an instant, a huge object broke through the surface of the ground. It was a huge black hand that was like a small mountain. William sensed that his life was in danger and immediately retreated. But the huge black hand did not grab him. Instead, it grabbed Gerda, who was laughing bitterly. Just as the huge hand dragged Gerda underground, Gerda stared at William in a frenzied state. It was as though he wanted to carve William's appearance into his mind. That kind of gaze made one shudder. It made one break out in cold sweat. But when the huge black hand dragged Gerda away, he disappeared. The soldier William was dumbfounded. He recognized that hand. It was the hand of a devil. Wong Defa, it's not a hopeless situation, all right? Didn't I just sneak attack you twice? The injuries are not fatal. What kind of operation is this? Sacrificing yourself to escape into the dark world? How King close do you have to have a good relationship with the devil for you to come out alive? William's face darkened. He vaguely remembered that in his previous life, Gerda had dark battle energy, but he had died at the hands of the devil. There seemed to be some connection between the two. Or rather, there was some kind of secret transaction. Logically speaking, a price had to be paid to make a deal with the devil. But the scope of the darkness invasion was too large. The devils wanted too many things. So, King Gerda had fallen out with the devils in order to enjoy his power. After all, not everyone who made a deal with the devils would be corroded by the darkness. The so-called deal was just to make himself stronger. But now his operations seem to have forced himself into the dark world. The darkness invasion seems to have an old enemy. William pondered for a while. He turned to look at the situation of the city that was about to be breached. He did not want to stay here any longer. Since the outcome had been determined, he had to think about how to deal with the aftermath. William slipped away and started to ponder. The scale of the darkness invasion in the second version was unusually large. It covered 9 continents. This was the super version that all the players, NPCs, and all living creatures had to face. In particular, in every continent, every region, and every small town, there were spies who were responsible for the darkness invasion. What should I do? Is Gerda going to join forces with Mudek to start the darkness invasion? Won't the southeastern corner be even more tragic? In his previous life, Mudek was the mastermind behind the darkness invasion in the southeastern corner. In a short period of time, William had encountered him twice. It was a pity that William did not have the chance to kill him. I have to develop the City of Dawn as quickly as possible. The darkness invasion is only the beginning. William slowly clenched his fists. In this God's world, which was full of disasters, even legendary NPCs were in danger of dying at any time. But I will be the king of this place in the dark. But a conspiracy was a conspiracy. Everything that he had done could not be exposed, and he would not let the world know. Many people would be sacrificed in this conspiratorial war. Many people would only be known as the ones who died in battle until the end of their lives. But there was a famous saying that was suitable for those who had sacrificed in silence. No one knows your name, but your achievements will live on forever. This was a war for power. Similarly, this was also a conspiracy war. Chapter 169. The war was still ongoing. It was far from the time to surrender until the very last moment of this conquest. even if Gerda Nasses had wisely chosen to escape and had the ambition to make a comeback. But for now, William did not need to care about the threat he posed. In my previous life, Gerda died, but Augustine did not. This time, Augustine is mine. I don't care if you die or not. Anyway, if I win the main plot mission, the secret rulers of these two nations will be mine. William smiled proudly. It had to be said. He finally felt the joy of being reborn. Especially in this kind of main plot mission, he had the advantage of foresight and played his cards well. He had encouraged the Black Lava Nation to take the initiative to attack. In the early stages, he had taken the initiative to attack Rhine City. His goal was to give the Iron Nation a chance to use the underground tunnel to destroy the Black Lava Nation. William did not have such a big idea in the early stages, but Curry had given him a chance. He wanted to become a count. He had the same ambition as many people. He had the ambition to disregard everything for power. It was also at that time, William gradually came up with a plan and the idea of controlling the two dukedoms. In the subsequent dragon slaying battle, he had gained a lot. He had used the dragon crystals to exchange for many benefits, including the key magic scrolls. Marquis Chris had been secretly controlled by William. He had killed the second prince and sent his head to the crown prince. Originally, the second prince of the Black Lava Nation was really dead. The crown prince did not suspect it. But with the magic scrolls of the enchanter, the second prince had come back to life. Now that the king was dead, the other princes who did not have much power had either died or escaped. If the Black Lava Nation did not want to descend into chaos, they could only let the second prince ascend to the throne. With the support of Marquis Chris and a group of nobles, the second prince's throne would not be shaken. The 300 guards around the second prince were 300 dragons, blood warriors. They ensured that the identity of the second prince would not be exposed. At this moment, it was finally time to end things. Not long after, he returned to the battlefield with his real identity. Violent Dragon and the others, who had been fighting for a long time, cursed when they saw him. He secretly thought that the Lord of the City of Dawn was not a plaything. He was usually ferocious, but he would slip away at crucial moments. Only when Rhine City was defeated did he come out to gain battle achievements. William ignored the gazes of the others and shouted at the top of his lungs, "The army of the Dawn Army is invincible. Charge!" He charged into the crowd and took the opportunity to destroy the last line of defense on the city wall. He casually killed dozens of people like a hot knife through butter. He was incomparably domineering and surrounded by lightning. He was like the god of thunder that had descended into the world. Awkward, His Highness is such a coward. You only know how to bully small fries. Why don't you go solo that high-level boss? Exactly. Some of the players who didn't know what had happened felt a bit embarrassed. Fortunately, they had won big this time, so they didn't care where the prince had gone. Did William care? No. The most important thing about conspiracies was that no matter what kind of benefits and glory one gained from living, it was fine as long as one understood it in his heart. There was no need to say it out loud. Especially in front of the final spoils of war, all attacks on his face, even magic cannons, could be blocked by his thick skin. The death of the king of the Black Lava Nation did not make anyone cry out. Or rather, even if someone shouted, it might not be heard in the chaos on the city wall. It would not affect the overall situation. Because the commander of the royal guards, Renekton, was dead, this legendary boss was the most loyal lackey of the crown prince. Now that he was dead, there was nothing to worry about. Furthermore, the second prince was protected by 200 dragons, blood warriors. He was not someone that could be easily killed by assassins. What about Marquis Sauls? The father-in-law of the crown prince was originally the commander of the army. William was very wary of him. But the moment the king of the Black Lava Nation arrived on the battlefield, he snatched the order to mobilize the troops and took the title of commander. What a showy move. TSK. William could not imagine it, but he did not say much. It was because the crown prince wanted to write on his resume an achievement that no one in the Black Lava Nation had achieved for hundreds of years. He wanted to conquer the Iron Nation. There was no need to be suspicious. In the thousands of years of history on Earth, there were too many kings and monarchs who had done this. They had changed generals and commanders at the last minute. This was a taboo in the military, but it had been done countless times. If there were winners, there would naturally be losers. The Black Lava Nation had not been defeated, but he had died. The commander's seal of the Black Lava Nation had been taken by the second prince. Marquis Sauls, who had lost his military power, was dumbfounded. When he heard the news, he vomited blood. He was listless and felt like he was going to die at any moment. But he did not betray the Black Lava Nation. He did not ask Diablo to retreat. Instead, he allowed him to lead the troops to attack. He had no choice. He was a noble and a marquis. He could not betray his clansmen just because of the death of the crown prince. Benefits. These two words were the most important. For the nobles, kinship, love, these things did not exist in the eyes of most nobles. Everyone in the family existed for the benefit of the family. He was already over 100 years old and was more open-minded about this. He understood that the benefits of the family were the most important. When the Black Lava Nation was victorious, it was better to let his henchmen lead their clansmen to achieve more military merits. Then, the second prince would not have a reason to kill him. Rhine City was very big. After the Black Lava Nation sacrificed the lives of 20,000 warriors, they were finally conquered. The city gates were opened. More soldiers charged into the city, and the sounds of killing could be heard. In a short period of time, the Iron Man army continued to collapse, and the soldiers were defeated like a landslide. The number of deserters and soldiers who surrendered were simply too many to count. Kaner, the Grand Commander, had no choice but to lead 20,000 defeated soldiers and a group of confused Iron Nation players to retreat. At this moment, Kaner, the Grand Commander, was about to go crazy. He grabbed a soldier's neck in disbelief and asked fiercely, "Is what you said true? Dirty, dirty, dirty." The soldier's legs trembled as he struggled. The Grand Commander's aura was too ferocious. He was so scared that he peed his pants. Useless. Kaner threw him on the ground. "Grand Commander, it's true. Sir Gerda was captured by a huge black hand. This soldier had felt a stomachache on the battlefield. Hence, he defecated in the ruins for 2 days. That was how he saw the scene." Damn it, damn it. Kaner was enraged. Just as he was about to execute this soldier, Wales stopped him and gestured for him to calm down. Kaner took a deep breath. He saw that Wales' gaze was gradually turning strange. He clenched his fist and nodded. The two of them walked to the side and discussed something. Chapter 170. The Black Lava Nation had won. Rhine City had fallen. In the following 2 weeks, the Black Lava Nation's army continued to advance. They were like a hot knife through butter. Everywhere they passed, cities and fortresses either surrendered or were destroyed. Another month passed. When the Black Lava Nation attacked the Iron Kingdom, Commander Kaner personally beheaded the old king. He opened the city gates and welcomed the arrival of the Black Lava Nation's army. The Black Lava Nation had declared their victory in the War of Conquest. From then on, in the southeast corner, there was only the Black Lava Nation. If the Black Lava Nation had 3 more advanced professionals, it would become a grand duchy. Of course, there was also the City of Dawn, which seemed to be their ally in the southeast corner. Actually, what most people didn't understand was how they could win so easily. Many people even thought that the Iron Nation was not as powerful as the Black Lava Nation. But they did not know how much William had sacrificed. They did not know that William had killed 4 legions and killed Augustine. He had sacrificed a lot more than he had for the Black Lava Nation. That was how the Black Lava Nation had won. William had slowly disappeared from everyone's sight. The king of the Black Lava Nation had reduced the influence of the Dawn mercenary team. He tried his best to publicize that the Black Lava Nation had won the war. The Dawn mercenary team had not contributed much, but this was what William wanted them to see. He did not want to be too ostentatious and attract too much attention. He would first reduce his influence and slowly develop. But this was the ability of those in power. No matter which world it was the same. Those in power were the ones who knew the truth. In the eyes of the nobles and those who knew the secret, ordinary commoners were fools. It was not that they were short-sighted. It was not that their intelligence was not high enough. It was not that they had no vision. It was that the commoners, soldiers, and some so-called nobles could only see what they should see. What did the commoners see? It was what those in power wanted them to see. Were the opinions, and information that seemed to be harmful to those in power not purposely released by those in power? Were those in power not purposely letting the commoners know so that they would think that they had understood the truth? It could only be said that the truth seen by the commoners was far from the so-called truth. Some people would doubt the truth of the matter in the early stages, but they would remain rational and use their brains to think. However, as time passed, and as the truth was continuously revealed, everyone began to believe that this was the truth. Apart from a few wise and determined people, the commoners would lose the ability to think independently and become fools who followed the crowd. This was the benefit of controlling public opinion and public opinion. William deeply understood that if he wanted to advance in the world of gods, he had to master these two things. However, in order to control these two things, one must first have authority and power. If William wanted the vast majority of the commoners and subordinates to shout his lordship and die for him, then he could not let them understand the truth of many things. He had to let the people in his territory see the bright side of him. This method could also be called a persona. There was nothing that could be done about it. This was something that everyone had. It was just that some people were too overzealous in their promotion. It was easy for their dark side to be exposed, and they would die. The plan to secretly control the Black Lava Dukedom was his dark side. Although it was not a big deal, it could not be exposed easily. Therefore, he only chose the most loyal subordinates to carry out the plan. He made sure that they had more than 950 loyalty points. Otherwise, once the matter was exposed, not to mention how the commoners would view him, more importantly, the power behind the human dukedoms would definitely come to suppress him. Therefore, he had to be secretive enough. At least, he could not let anyone find out the key points. The main storyline mission of the legendary continent had ended. The players in the City of Dawn and Black Lava Dukedom received a huge reward. The huge reward of experience points allowed many people to level up 4 to 5 times in a row. However, most people upgraded their skills first before upgrading their character level. Another benefit was that the players received enough contribution points to completely upgrade their equipment. Most of the players could change to a set of beginner-level blue equipment, a silver weapon, or half a set of blue equipment. Changli Jioga, who had the highest damage output on the leaderboard, received a beginner-level epic sword. Second place was Xiao Aiyin, a dark gold weapon. Third place was Lucky Dream, a dark gold weapon. Fourth to 10th place were all gold weapons. 10th to 100th place were all silver weapons. The Dawn mercenary team's ridiculously huge reward made many players feel lucky to be a member of the City of Dawn. Many players felt that something was amiss. It seemed like the Black Lava Dukedom was going to attack the City of Dawn, but the reward was very tempting. After the war, almost all the players rushed to the City of Dawn. Only a few players remained in the Black Lava Dukedom. As the losers, the Iron Dukedom players had suffered consecutive defeats. Their main storyline mission also ended in failure. They only received half of the final reward. It was unbearable. The players led by Light of Freedom hardened their hearts. They led 20,000 players on a long journey away from the beginner's village towards the Emerald Grand Duchy in the north. They did not know if they could do well there. Anyway, they did not want to stay here anymore. They had no choice. Pride, stubbornness, willfulness. They would not die. This was the source of confidence of the players. This was the degree of freedom of the current virtual games. The so-called main storyline was not something that restricted the players. A true virtual game with a high degree of freedom was what it was for. If not, why would they play a virtual game that only allowed them to follow the main storyline? Why would they play gods? There are so many virtual games on the streets. Wouldn't it be better to choose one? As for the remaining tens of thousands of players, only a few chose to join the City of Dawn. More people saw an opportunity. The Black Lava Dukedom was going to attack the City of Dawn. Therefore, they joined the Black Lava Dukedom, hoping to avenge their humiliation. Logically speaking, the Black Lava Dukedom was the executioner of the Iron Dukedom. If the City of Dawn was going to war with the Black Lava Dukedom, why did the players not join the City of Dawn to attack the Black Lava Dukedom? It was because the players did not want to lose anymore. They felt that the Black Lava Dukedom was more powerful and could defeat the City of Dawn. After the second prince became the king, he did not change his policies. He still followed the aristocratic system. However, he started to accept the chosen ones. He also issued missions in the Southern Plains. For a moment, the players of the City of Dawn and the Black Lava Dukedom would often meet each other in the plains. There was nothing much to talk about between the players. If there was a disagreement, they would start a war. Therefore, the killings became more intense. From a small-scale group battle, it became a war between the small guilds. Gradually, it became a faction war between the large guilds and the large guilds. And the Massacre Plains was officially born. This was the battlefield that belonged to the players. This was the mission location that belonged to the players. This was the free zone, the killing zone, and the training zone. As for the behind-the-scenes boss, William just smiled and looked at everything. As long as the health bar is not full, the battles will not stop. Experience is nothing. Don't be afraid of death. Fight more and train more. It's better than getting beaten up in the future national war and being unable to retaliate against the darkness invasion. William held his wine glass and gazed into the distance. Within half a year, he was the king of this place. But he also had to develop at full speed to deal with the darkness invasion. Chapter 171. The Victory of the Main Plot Mission. William had made a fortune. Congratulations on completing the S-level mission, War of Power. Congratulations on assisting the Black Lava Nation in defeating the Iron Nation. You have 55% effective contribution points for this mission. You have obtained 663,400 experience points. You have obtained the Endowment Upgrade card. You have obtained the Unearned Reward, Promise of the Black Lava Nation. You have obtained the Legendary Equipment Mission Clue. Friendly reminder, you have to ask for the Unearned Reward yourself. Use your guts and ask for it. D***MN. When William saw the last sentence, he was speechless. What was the reward for the Unearned Reward? After conquering the Iron Nation, he would receive 30% of the loot. According to logic, I can't ask for this reward. But can 30% of the loot satisfy me? William narrowed his eyes. He had started to make arrangements. The treasures of the Iron Nation, the treasury, and the military supplies were slowly being transferred. Even the treasures of the Black Lava Nation's palace were on the way. He did not need a lot of manpower. He only needed Lautner to bring Moses' ring and be in charge of looting the place. But the endowment upgrade card. Is my luck finally going to awaken? William thought that he had changed his fate. His luck had increased a little. In the end, it was still 3. The endowment upgrade card is a good item. But who should I upgrade it to is a problem. William glanced at his few endowments. Handsome, middle-level life form, middle-level magic, power of thunder, and fury of thunder. He had a total of 5 endowments. The middle-level life form, middle-level magic, and power of thunder were automatically upgraded according to the professional's level. Then, can handsome be even more perverted? William laughed. He was looking forward to his charm. Hence, he took out the endowment upgrade card and tried it. Ding! This endowment is temporarily unable to be upgraded. Tis TSK. Perhaps my looks have reached the limit of what a mortal can achieve. Then I can only upgrade the Fury of Thunder. But does the word temporarily mean that it can be upgraded in the future? William narrowed his eyes. He did not know when his innate endowment could be upgraded. After all, the endowment of being handsome was not to be underestimated. Ever since he obtained Thunder's Fury during the dragon-slaying battle, he had never used this talent skill, no matter what kind of danger he encountered. He wondered how strong his talent would be after the upgrade. With a light tap from him, the talent upgrade card turned into a white light and disappeared into his body. William did not feel anything, but when he looked at his talent again, he was dumbfounded. Thunder Fury, upgraded when facing a creature that is 10 levels higher than you. You can sacrifice 30% of your maximum health points to activate Thunder Fury. For the next 3 seconds, your next attack has a 40% chance of increasing your attack power by X 500% and dealing X 500% thunder attribute damage. Cooldown, 5 hours, Wong Defa. sacrificing 30% of your max HP, and there's still a 40% chance? William gulped. He glanced at his luck points and felt that it was best not to use this method. 40% didn't mean that it would succeed 3 times. For unlucky players, it was very likely that they wouldn't be able to activate it even once after 10 tries, unless the game had a stacking probability and a guarantee of 10 tries. But it had to be said, this skill was really strong. If it was stacked with the light of dawn, it would be strong enough to kill a few advanced legendary creatures. William solved the problem of his talent and glanced at the mission clue of the legendary equipment. Ding dong, discover the mission clue of the legendary equipment. Do you want to activate? Activate a long time ago, before the gods' continent was split into 9 continents, on an island south of the city of Dawn, there is a piece of information regarding the fall of the Thunder God. There is also the equipment that he once carried. Hidden information. It is an island with thunderstorms. It is an island with countless powerful magical beasts. It is an island that is difficult for ordinary people to enter. On the peak of the mountain, in the sea of thunder, everything is destroyed. After William finished reading the mission information, he suddenly felt bitter. His eyes turned red, and he felt like crying. Damn, why did I awaken the Thunder Endowment? Why did I painstakingly build an epic warship? Isn't it for that stupid island? Isn't it for that ring? Do I need you to give me the mission information? William felt like committing suicide. He had painstakingly obtained the information of a legendary equipment, but he knew it. But doesn't this mean that there is a problem? William suddenly thought of something. He stroked his chin and muttered, if I have a very high contribution in the main plot mission, does it mean that the mainframe will give me information about the gods or the legendary equipment of the gods? He knew that the legendary equipment was divided into different levels. There were also growth types and non-growth types. The legendary equipment that had been carried by the gods would have an additional special effect compared to the ordinary legendary equipment. The various enhancements would also be more insane. If that was the case, then he would be able to obtain more information about the gods in the future. Even if there was no information about the equipment, it was still very important to William. Of course, William did not build the epic warship just for the ring. As a legendary boss, he had a lot of enhancements from his bloodline. There was no need for him to pursue legendary equipment. Of course, he would definitely not let go of the items that were delivered to him. More importantly, the resources on the island were too important. As the place where the Thunder God had severed his hand before his death, there were many rare mineral veins, resources, and a variety of species of magical beasts. They were also extremely precious. If I'm not mistaken, there should be a lot of thunder warhorses on the island, right? William could not help but swallow his saliva. The thunder warhorses were not ordinary horses. They were dragon-blooded magical beasts. However, due to the mutation of their genes and the invasion of various magical powers, they were horses in the past. Even if they became magical beasts, they would be easier to tame than other magical beasts. And those thunder warhorses were the key to forming a cavalry army. In William's previous life, the players had gradually come into contact with a resource-rich island after the Great Voyage era. It had become a place that all the big guilds had to fight for. There were many thunder warhorses on the island, but many guilds were fighting for them. Some guilds could not compete with them, so they started killing them. Some guilds even took out forbidden spell scrolls. Not only did they destroy the horse farms, but they also killed many warhorses that could step on the battlefield. In one sentence, I can't get it. Don't even think about getting it. All sorts of unimaginable tricks had turned the resource-rich island into a bloody battlefield. But now that he could come back, then this island would be his. It belonged to the city of Dawn. He wanted to turn this stormy island into his base. What about the magical beasts? Weren't they reared in his backyard? Chapter 172. Time passed. The game had been in open beta for half a year. William plundered unimaginable wealth from the Iron Nation's treasury. He could spend up to 41 million gold coins, 20,000 sets of beginner-level blue equipment, 12,000 sets of middle-level blue equipment, 3,000 sets of middle-level silver equipment. There were also thousands of sets of materials for catapults and heavy-duty crossbows. There were all sorts of iron concentrate, iron ore, mithril, adamantine, and rations. It could be said that the City of Dawn had to build a few more large warehouses before they could fit in the warehouse. But this was the limit. William could only plunder the Iron Nation's treasury. He did not plan to plunder the wealth of the other nobles or the resources of the Black Lava Nation. At least now was not the time. Even so, after the victory of the war, some aristocrats of the Black Lava Dukedom were not satisfied because they did not obtain enough spoils of war. But the second prince had officially ascended the throne. His 300 personal guards were like wolves and tigers. All of them were the best of the best. The former commander of the royal guards, Renekton, had died on the battlefield. The second prince easily controlled the remaining royal guards and many legions. This caused the nobles to be unhappy, especially Marquis Chris, who supported the current king. The newly promoted Marquis Curry also had the full support of a group of new nobles. The Black Lava Nation did not descend into civil strife. After all, in many aspects, the nobles wanted more land. With land and good farmland, they would not have to worry about money flowing into their pockets. The former commander of the Black Lava Nation, Marquis Sauls, had died a few days ago. Fortunately, his title was still there and had been officially passed on to his eldest son. However, his retainer, Diablo, who was a legendary boss with the title of Count but no family, was nowhere to be found. Marquis Saul's eldest son could not make him stay. Diablo was loyal to Marquis Sauls because he was grateful, but it did not mean that he would always be loyal. The commander of the Iron Nation, Kaner, and the legendary Earth Element Whales chose to surrender. They chose to surrender and pledge their loyalty to the Black Lava Dukedom. The Black Lava Nation kept their titles and land, and this was also a normal operation. During the era of the nobles, if the nobles surrendered, they would receive good treatment. After the Black Lava Dukedom unified the southeast corner, many Iron Dukedom civilians were reduced to slaves, and slaves were still slaves. He sold it to the City of Dawn at a high price. At least for now, Black Lava Nation was profiting. From the leaked information, the selling price was very high. As the City of Dawn was lacking in population, they had to swallow up the population. On the other hand, the Black Lava Nation was also expanding their army. Hence, they needed a lot of money and equipment. But no one knew what was going on between the two of them. The players gradually got used to the current state of the game. The main storyline missions of the other continents had just reached the climax, but the players of the legendary continent had already finished their missions and started various guild wars. On the grassland between the City of Dawn and the Black Lava Nation, that was a place that players had to fight for. The resources here were good. There were little manfish, goblins, orcs, and even low-level magical beasts. These were the resources that the players liked. With their current level, they could only mingle around here. The City of Dawn and the Black Lava Nation had issued some missions to capture the flag. That was to occupy the grassland and erect the flag of their faction at a commanding height. This gave the players a feeling that the two factions were about to go to war. Hence, besides fighting small monsters and completing their home-based missions, the players gathered at the grassland battlefield and fought back and forth. As for the slave trade between the two factions, the players did not take it to heart, because throughout history, there were many cases where the two nations fought while engaging in underhanded transactions. Some players might say that the Black Lava Nation was supporting the enemy, but this kind of voice did not cause any commotion. In short, everyone took what they needed. In a short period of time, the City of Dawn had become a large city with a population of 350,000. Furthermore, the slave trade had started, and the population was still increasing. The entire city was getting bigger and bigger, and it kept expanding towards the mountains. It gave people the feeling that it was rising from the ground. At the same time, there were more and more mages in the city. Among them, many earth and metal mages were hung on ropes at the edge of the cliff. They were constantly enchanted to increase the firmness of the cliff walls. This kind of operation, many players felt suffocated when they saw it, because if they enchanted the entire cliff, they did not know how many earth and metal mages would be needed to complete such a huge siege. William had originally intended to use copper and iron to water the cliff walls. but he felt that the consumption was too high, and he could not afford it for the time being. Hence, he gave up on this idea that might cause the collapse of the territory. For the time being, enchantment is enough. I'll take it slowly. Anyway, I'll try my best to prevent the dark creatures from climbing up the walls. William was also paying attention to the steep cliffs. After the second version of the game, many powerful dark creatures could insert their sharp claws into the walls and climb up. Siege ladders? Sorry, we dark creatures do not need them. This was the main reason why he wanted to enchant them. The cliff was 80 meters high, so it was impossible to enchant the entire cliff. So, they enchanted a certain part of the cliff to make it extremely sturdy for the dark creatures to climb up. But when they were halfway up, they suddenly realized that they couldn't climb up anymore. As for the steep mountain paths, they are places to defend. This steep cliff that separates the blackleaf forest from the human world seems to have been created by a sage from the elfin era. William thought of the infinite power that could destroy the world and change the terrain. He could not help but feel respect. Legendary and sage. The difference between the two was like heaven and earth sage. That was an existence that could kill gods. In the southeast region, there were a total of 13 steep mountain paths that could be used to climb up the cliff. Among them, the 3 mountain paths near the City of Dawn were the easiest to walk on. The other 10 mountain paths were dangerous, even for professionals. But when the darkness invades, we have to destroy most of the mountain paths. It's best to leave only 5 mountain paths. William narrowed his eyes. He wanted to block the dark creatures and not let them invade. If all the mountain paths were destroyed, the dark creatures would go crazy and attack in all directions. It was far better to block the dark creatures on 5 mountain paths so that they could defend with all their might. Otherwise, if the battle line was stretched too long, even if the City of Dawn had a lot of soldiers, they would be too weak against the dark creatures. When that happened, the defense line would definitely be broken. Hence, they could not use the cliff as a defense line. Instead, they used the city walls. Chapter 173. William had greatly shortened the duration of the main storyline war. Now, he had half a year to deal with the darkness invasion. He knew the locations of some devil's dens. He also knew that some dark warlocks were the culprits of the darkness invasion, but he was unable to deal with these hidden dangers. There were not many devil's dens on the grassland. The dark warlocks were also waiting in the dark. Half a year later, under the influence of the gods and devils, the barrier between light and darkness collided. Numerous devil dens appeared out of nowhere from the ground. In many cases, the dark warlocks did not even need to help. The teleportation portal would continue to expand. Only at that moment. That was when the devil's dens would be completely destroyed. Otherwise, even if the devil's dens were closed, they could be opened again. This was the war between the gods and devils. Or rather, this was their game. Then, we have to make full preparations. If we face a large number of dark creatures, the City of Dawn will perish. William did not have much time to waste. He hastily settled the many transactions with the Black Lava Dukedom and gave many instructions. Then the curtains of the Great Voyage were drawn. Third Era, September 21st, 2333. The Dawn vessel set sail for the first time. This event was not widely publicized. William did not issue any missions. But no matter who it was, when they saw the battleship that was more than 100 meters long and 4 stories high, there was an indescribable shock in their hearts. It had to be said, humans were too small in front of such a huge ship. In this magical fantasy era, this kind of large battleship that used the power of magic crystals and wind power would attract everyone's attention. The Great Voyage era has begun. The main storyline of version 1.0 has just ended, and Prince William has taken out a huge epic warship. Oh my God, my heart can't take it anymore. Conquering the sea is what a man should do. Many players who were looking forward to the magical ocean would go to the seaside every day to look at the super warship that was temporarily docked at the port. They often dreamed that they would become the captain of a ship and take their crew on an adventure in the endless sea. Islands, mermaids, all kinds of sea beasts, boundless oceans, storms that could be encountered at any time, These were all things that men should conquer. These were all things that every man wanted to face. The next day, William stood on the deck and looked into the distance. His ambition was growing. Dawn vessel, level, epic three-masted battleship, power source, magical energy, sails, displacement, 2,100 tons, length, 121 meters, width, 32 meters, draft, 9, 6 meters, maximum speed, 15 to 40 knots, maximum crew, 1,200 for long distance and 3,000 for short distance journeys. Weapons, temporarily equipped with 108 heavy-duty crossbows, enchanted. Weapon, temporarily equipped with 108 heavy crossbows, enchanted. Epic ability, passive fire dragon deterrence. The keel of the Dawn vessel is made up of the spine of a legendary fire dragon. It can suppress sea beasts below the legendary level and prevent them from taking the initiative to attack the Dawn vessel. Dawn, with sea beasts that were below legendary. Of the sea beasts would have their attributes reduced by 20% due to dragon's deterrence. Epic ability, passive, indestructible. The Dawn vessel was constructed from mithril, orichalcum, and black ironwood. Not only was it extremely hard, but it had also been enchanted for a long time. It had an unimaginable defense. Attacks with less than 5,000 points of attack power would not be able to cause any damage to the vessel. Moreover, any area of effect magic attacks will be weakened by 30%. Epic ability, passive light of magic. The interior of the Dawn vessel has a magic array made of magical crystals. No matter what damage the ship suffers, the magic array will absorb the magic and automatically recover. This is my battleship. I'm the captain of this warship. William was overwhelmed with emotions. He could not control his excitement. The power of an epic-grade warship was unparalleled. This was not a piece of equipment with a grade restriction, but a genuine epic warship. Its power was simply beyond the imagination of mortals. Then, it's time to set sail to Stormy Island. William had prepared for this for a long time. Now, it was finally time to witness a miracle. About the great voyage, the players were interested in participating, but most people knew that they had no chance. That was because there were only 100 heavens, chosen ones, who could board this battleship. As for this kind of ranking selection, nothing else. It was the arena that had just been built. Only the top 100 warriors could follow His Royal Highness' footsteps and conquer the boundless sea. From the day the Gladiator Arena was built, it attracted tens of thousands of players to participate. There was even a venue specially built for NPCs. Because the two parties could not compete in any aspect. If an NPC with a Grandmaster bloodline participated in the battle of the players, he would be a god of war. No one knew why. After William built the arena for the players, this Colosseum had actually activated two special effects that only players could see. 1. The players who died in the arena would not drop their equipment and experience points. 2. The attributes of the players who participated in the arena would be balanced. It had to be said that this was the secret ploy of the god's mastermind. But this method reduced the unnecessary actions of the players. It also made the battles more bloody, more exciting, and more fair. It also made the players feel like they were on the verge of death. William pretended not to know about the mastermind's ploy. He gave the players 3 days. He wanted them to fight day and night in the arena. Then, the top 100 would be selected. There was also a God of War list that appeared in the arena. This list had a seasonal competition system. Each season lasted for 3 months. A God of War would be selected every 3 months. The God of War would receive a piece of dark gold equipment of the same level, 100 gold coins, and a lot of experience points as a reward. As for the 2nd to 10th place, they would receive gold equipment, gold coins, and experience points as a reward. As for the top 100 and the top 1,000, there would be different participation prizes. But in the last season, the strongest God of War would be selected. The God of War would receive an epic weapon. At the same time, his name would be engraved on a huge stone tablet at the entrance of the arena. The glory would be passed down forever. The battles continued. Many players paid to enter the arena to watch the battles live. They watched the live broadcasts on the forum. As for some bored NPCs, some of them paid the entrance fee and stayed inside for an entire day. It could not be helped. The entrance fee was 3 silver coins. It would be a loss if they did not stay for a day. Moreover, the people in the arena were very eloquent. Listening to them, they felt that they were very capable. The chosen ones were very good at bootlicking. They had to spend money to buy food and drinks, but they would always send it to them. Chapter 174. Due to William, the first season of the God of War list had to end within 3 days. On the third day, the officials of the gods used this as the title and launched a promotional campaign. There was also an official live broadcast on the homepage of the official website of the country. It was a great recommendation on the homepage. It was enough to show how much importance the local officials placed on the God of War list. William could not see the official website, but he could see the forum. He understood and understood. Besides the level ranking in the game, all the other rankings were created by NPCs. What the officials were doing now was to make the rankings official. This would attract more players to participate in the ranking. What about the players who did not belong to the City of Dawn? They could only wait for the Black Lava Dukedom to build an arena and provide some rankings to the players. Basically, in the later stages of the game, the rankings were divided into factions, unless it was a world tournament. Otherwise, it would be hard to determine which faction was the strongest. Half a year passed. The players had reached level 30. From then on, they could not revive indefinitely. In the future, there would be a limit of 6 revivals per day. This greatly changed the insane revival ability of the players. The professional players, expert players, and leaders of the guilds made use of their advantage in equipment. They hoped to reach level 40 and become intermediate professionals. William did not go to the arena to watch the matches. Instead, he opened a forum with great interest and watched the finals. This was a duel to prove glory. This was a competition that had started in advance. This was a battle between Glory and Golden Era. It was the final battle between Changli Jioga and Forever Alone. Changli Jioga was the first person in the world to possess an epic secret manual. He was a dual swordsman. He was fully equipped with gold equipment and dark gold weapons. The average attributes did not mean that the special effects had been removed. Some special equipment often had powerful special effects that could not be removed. At most, they could reduce damage and control time. The most important thing was he had been allocated the blood essence of the fire dragon's heart. From then on, Changli Jioga became the first dragon's blood warrior among the players. From then on, not only did he have the exclusive dragon's language magic, but he also had the ability to transform. The leader of the Golden Era, Forever Alone, was a veteran professional player. His maneuvering, battle tactics, and foresight were excellent. In particular, he had used his contribution points to exchange for Legolas' hidden occupation manual, incomplete, Gloom Ranger. Everyone knew Rangers were marksmen. However, powerful Rangers were also equivalent to long-range assassins. If they had enough power, they could even become warriors. If their subclasses were a bit more powerful, they could also become mages. However, if a Ranger wanted to play the game well, they needed to be accurate, fast, stable, and long-lasting. Not only did Forever Alone have this talent in the game, but he was also an archery enthusiast in the real world and had made quite a name for himself. As for Lucky Dream, Xiao Ayan, Chu Yochio, and the others, due to various unlucky factors, they encountered each other in advance and were defeated in advance. Fortunately, they relied on their own strength to fight their way to the top 100 of the God of War list. The two of them stood on an arena that was 300 meters long and wide. Changli Jioga glanced at all his skills, as well as the dragon blood transformation that had refreshed. He was full of confidence, and so before the battle started, he raised his eyebrows and said arrogantly, "Admit defeat, Forever Alone. You won't be able to withstand the dragon blood transformation for 10 minutes. After the transformation, I'll just increase your attributes and awaken your fire element battle energy in advance." What is this what you're talking about? The opponent that Forever Alone wanted to meet the most was Chu Yochio. It was a pity that he had encountered the vice-captain, Xiao Ayan. Therefore, when Chu Yochio knew that he had entered the top 100, he decisively chose to throw the match. He did not want the beautiful vice-captain to stare at him all day. The two of them did not fight. Instead, they chatted. William felt that something was amiss. They were doing it on purpose. Because there was a live broadcast on the official website, the two of them definitely wanted to attract some attention. Even the bullet screen was getting impatient. Fortunately, after a while, the atmosphere was getting better. Many spectators started to throw banana peels. If not, with a defense shield, the situation would be very unfriendly. Hence, the two of them attacked simultaneously. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. Quick arrows. Streaks of battle energy arrows collided with the latter. Changli Jyoga's battle energy shield was slightly unstable at the first moment. After all, not everyone could use their swords to block arrows that were shot at them. Changli Jyoga was a professional player, but he felt helpless against the arrows that came from tricky angles. Because not only was Forever Alone's shooting speed very fast, but each of his arrows also had a strong prediction ability. He kept retreating to create distance, but his shooting speed was not slow at all. He did not use any skills, but he brought great danger to Changli Jyoga at the first moment. He's so difficult to deal with. No wonder the captain told me to attack fiercely at the first moment. Don't give him any chance to delay or kite. Changli Jyoga's battle energy shield was broken in a short period of time. But just when Forever Alone felt that he could deal damage and used his skills, Changli Jyoga bellowed. His entire body kept expanding. He was like a small giant that was burning with flames. He stared with his golden eyes that could make an adult's heart tremble. He charged towards the ladder like a cannonball. Damn, this is the finals of the first season of the God of War ranking list. Why did he transform? Can't you give me some face? Forever Alone could not speak. He had an epic occupation, but he had not awakened his attributes. He could not unleash the special effects of this occupation. As a ranger, Forever Alone's speed was naturally faster than Changli Jyoga's. But Changli Jyoga was a warrior. Not only did he have the charge skill, but after transforming, he was even faster than him. At this stage, Forever Alone did not want to hide his abilities anymore. Arrow Storm. Everyone watched as Changli Jyoga charged in front of him. Changli Jyoga suddenly somersaulted and leaped. In midair, he shot out more than 10 battle energy arrows. His accuracy was shocking, because such high difficulty maneuvers were done by humans. There was no system assistance. But even if Changli Jyoga did not have a battle energy shield, he did not care at all. He forcefully withstood the arrows. Ignoring the damage that appeared on his body, he suddenly raised his sword. Boom! A sword energy that was several meters long attacked his face. Forever Alone once again shot an arrow to the side at an even faster speed. With the recoil, he dodged the sword energy. Many people exclaimed, because Forever Alone's maneuvers were not only cool, but also very effective. As a ranger, he had already consumed 1/3 of Changli Jyoga's HP in a short period of time. But he was not attacked. But at this moment, Changli Jyoga suddenly spat out a wave of fire to the side. Ice Wall. Forever Alone used magic once again. His sub-profession was an ordinary magician. Although he did not awaken any attributes, a beginner magician could use 7 types of beginner magic. Only when he reached the intermediate level would he need to specialize. But the ice wall could not withstand the flames of the dragon language. It melted in an instant. Forever Alone wanted to pull away again. But it was not good. Changli Jyoga was an obedient person. He knew how powerful his team leader was as a master tactician. He charged head-on into the ice and fire engulfed by Do Chi and slashed at Forever Alone. Game over cold. Forever Alone faced this kind of dragon blood warrior. There was no other way. After being closed in, he did not even have the time to release any extra skills. Just like an old master, he was directly hacked to death by a flurry of swords Forever Alone. With his ability to fool others, he officially became the first season's God of War. Chapter 175. In the first season, Changli Jyoga had obtained the first place on the God of War leaderboard with a huge advantage. Many players cursed him for his dragon's blood transformation ability. But no matter what, in the entire world, He was the only one who had obtained this unconventional benefit. The others had nothing to say. The most eye-catching thing was the great voyage of the City of Dawn. This was the first time that the gods NPC had ventured out of the beginner's village and led the players to explore. Many players could only look at the City of Dawn with envy. Players from other countries were bored and started posting about it. The foreigners were puzzled. Are we playing the same game as the Chinese players? To the foreigners, the main storyline missions, side missions, and other missions of the Chinese players were progressing too quickly. The main storyline missions had ended hastily, and the players had fewer ways to gain experience. But the crucial thing was that the experience points from side missions were still abundant, especially when the Chinese players had started their great voyage. What would the English and Spanish players think? It had to be said, William had indirectly tricked many foreigners. After his great voyage began, many foreign players who were unwilling to lag behind started to think about building their own warships. It was simple. This caused many large foreign guilds to lose their underwear to the point where they didn't even have their underwear left. The next day, the sky was cloudless and the sun was bright. The number of people at the Port of Dawn was endless. There were crowds of players everywhere. The port was heavily guarded. William led 2,500 soldiers, 100 players, and 400 lifestyle professionals. They were about to board the Dawn vessel. The cabin was filled with food, vegetables, tomatoes, and hundreds of barrels of alcohol. After all, sailing was not the same as marching. When people faced the sea, they would often feel fear. In many cases, they would need alcohol to numb their nerves, but with the speed of the Dawn vessel, this was considered a short voyage. But when they reached Stormy Island, if the storm was too harsh, they would have to stay for a long time. The players did not know what they were facing. They could not imagine the harsh environment of Stormy Island, and they could not imagine how high the level of the magical beast would be. The 100 players all wore excited little faces as they looked around with smiles, as if they were showing off. The city lord gave an order. 3,000 people boarded the warship in an orderly manner. There were a total of 3 decks, and the space was large enough to accommodate these people in a short period of time. The moment the regular soldiers boarded the ship, they began to enter the interior of the deck. Those who had beds laid down on them, while those who didn't had beds huddled together. Since there were so many of them, they weren't afraid of being raped. But if he were to really be anal, it wasn't just a matter of one person. He reckoned that all the men on this floor would surround him. As for the players, they stayed on the deck, enjoying the sea breeze and looking at the endless sea. As a professional driver, William had quite a lot of sailing experience in his previous life. He had even been a pirate. He had recruited many NPCs and specially robbed the transport ships of some guilds. The feeling of holding the rudder again is really different. William took a deep breath and looked around at the crew who were ready. Amidst the cheers of countless people, he shouted, "Raise the sails, set sail! Raise the sails, set sail!" A nimble gnome climbed up the rope to the highest point and put down the sail flattened by the wings of the fire dragon. Actually, he could use magic to do this, but doing so would make it more ceremonial in an instant. A gentle breeze blew. The sails emitted magical waves, and the huge ship slowly moved and accelerated. When the Dawn vessel left the vicinity of the port, the 3 huge sails were all put down. The hull of the ship sank on the surface of the sea, and its speed increased. They were getting further and further away from the players and NPCs at the port. William retracted his gaze. He raised his eyebrows against the sea breeze and waved his hand to summon the chief officer. He lazily leaned against the pole of the ship, admiring the beautiful sea scenery. This time, the regular legion that boarded the ship was a new legion. It was called Breaking Wave Legion. There were only 2,000 of them, and 500 of them were water warriors. There are also 500 of William's personal guards, Locke and Norton. As for his many trusted subordinates, only Lautner had come along. Of course, because of the harsh environment of Stormy Island, he had specially chosen the Tauren, FIU Roser. Now, this fellow was trembling on the deck, his hands gripping the railing tightly. Every time there was a storm, he would shout and wail. He was so cowardly that it was embarrassing. "Boss, I want to go home." FIU Roser blinked his golden eyes. which had almost been extinguished. William glanced at him and kicked him away, causing him to roll to the bottom of the ship. Why did he follow if he was afraid of death? Couldn't he have rejected Lautner earlier? Since he had the dragon's blood, how could he not embarrass himself? Lautner expressionlessly frowned. He was actually quite afraid of the sea, but his nickname was Iron-Headed. He had to pretend that he did not care. At this moment, a man wearing a black robe slowly walked in front of William. Some players were also curious, because they had already discovered him. This person who had never revealed his face was actually a legendary, until the black-robed man took off his hood. Changli Jioga and the others widened their eyes and gaped in bewilderment. It was no other person. It was actually Augustine? Gosh, wasn't he already killed? How is that possible? I saw his corpse. His head was almost destroyed. How could he still be alive? Forever Alone was stunned. He looked over in disbelief. TSK. Could it be that Prince William can revive the NPC while it's hot? Brother, why are you so outstanding? But he has really been revived. The players swallowed their saliva. This was the only way they could think of. For a moment, many players looked at William with admiration. It was as if they could feel the mysteriousness and power of William. Augustine saw the gazes of the others and laughed lightly. He looked into the distance and muttered to himself, "Life has passed, but the flame of hope has not been extinguished. The body that came from hell still yearns for the life of the human world." Sparks flickered in the ashes of the ashes. Ever since I was reborn, my name will be Burned Cinder. My name will be Burned Cinder. Greetings, Lord. Burned Cinder revealed a flirtatious smile at William. The corners of William's mouth twitched. He wanted to smack Augustine's head. Was he horny? Or did Moses play with this guy until he was broken? Why did he feel like an Annie? What happened to the tough guy in the past? Or perhaps was this his true nature? But 1,000 points of loyalty wasn't fake. Ever since Moses had returned Burned Cinder to William, Burned Cinder had developed 1,000 loyalty points. His affinity points were also 1,000 points. But William did not want to look at his affectionate eyes. Ahem, have a good rest. If you have nothing to do, just look at the seascape. William did not know what to say, but he asked Burned Cinder to go to the side. Burned Cinder obediently left. He silently leaned against the railing of the ship and occasionally glanced at the prince. Many players were dumbfounded when they saw this situation. Chapter 176. The Dawn vessel sailed on the magical ocean. As they traveled further and further away from the continent, to the point where they could no longer see the continent, many people began to gulp. In just a few hours, the sunny weather and cloudless skies had disappeared. The sea breeze became stronger. Dark clouds gathered in the sky. In an instant, lightning flashed and thunder roared. Bolts of thunder rumbled in the sky. It was as if they had entered another world from one world. In the distance, there were huge waves that were hundreds of meters tall. The waves were powerful enough to crush everything. The players felt that they were too small. Some NPCs could clearly feel that the magic in the waves was very active. It seemed that it was because of the rich magic that the waves were so turbulent. But at this moment, the players witnessed the power of the Dawn vessel. No matter how strong the waves were, no matter how violent the storms were, the Dawn vessel was like a fortress on the sea. It kept sailing on the endless ocean, no matter what kind of waves. This epic warship could face them head-on. It sailed on the endless ocean fearlessly. Some of the sea beasts that were a few meters long leaped out of the sea from time to time. They opened their eyes and looked at the creatures on the ship. They seemed to be looking forward to the food that fell from the ship. Fortunately, the Dawn vessel continued to release its dragon's might. The sea beasts did not attack. Even if they were attacked, the strong defense of the ship prevented the sea beasts from doing any damage. Many people on the deck were swaying and vomiting. The players grabbed onto the ropes with lingering fear. They were afraid that they would be swept away by the strong waves. Even if they could revive on the ship, they would not be able to retrieve their lost equipment. William stood steadily. It was as if he had lived on a ship since he was young. He did not feel any discomfort. He picked up the silver compass and looked at the shaking needle. Then he glanced at the sky against the wind and rain. Then He wiped the rainwater off his face and said in a deep voice, "Reduce the speed to the slowest. The field of vision is too small. We have to prevent any accidents." "Yes, Captain." The captain of the Breaking Waves Legion was the first officer of the ship, Jack. He was also an epic warrior. Moreover, he had more than half a year of sailing training. His skin was tanned, but he had a pair of dazzling golden eyes. It was obvious that this army commander, who originally only had this Grandmaster bloodline, had also become an epic fire professional because of the dragon blood. He held a bottle of wine in his left hand and took a big gulp. He also looked at the dark sky. It was indeed not suitable to speed up at this time. The defense of an epic-grade warship was very strong, but he also knew that the captain was going to a small island. If they hit a submerged reef, it would be awkward if they got stuck on it. Not to mention damaging the hull at that time, he wouldn't be able to go up or down. Thus, he commanded the crew to quickly retract the two sails and reduce the speed of the ship. Lautner seemed to have sensed something. He walked over to William and asked, "What's wrong?" William stroked his chin and said nothing. He always felt that his luck was a little low, and it dragged down the luck of the entire ship. He was just about to head to Stormy Island. Then, he encountered a superstorm. Although the entire Stormy Island was surrounded by a storm of lightning and thunder. But now, they were clearly not in the storm circle, and there were very few storms in the periphery. In particular, because of the weather, even the silver quality compass had started to drift. In addition, he did not have a nautical chart, so William was a little afraid. But he still patted Lautner's shoulder. "Uncle, don't worry." Lautner gulped. He was no longer worried about the warship. He started to worry about his future safety. As the storm became more violent, waterspouts kept appearing. Many players no longer stood on the deck against the wind and rain. They immediately ran into the cabins to rest. William was not moved by this. He only comforted the crew members. Then, he walked into his captain's cabin and waved his hand to light up the fireplace. He took out a piece of magical beast meat from his space ring and started his happy life. After all, he had said long ago that without a Grandmaster warship, it was impossible to travel far. It was not only because of the sea beasts, but also because of the harsh weather on the magical ocean. But the captain was awesome. He had a huge house that was 120 square meters, while the others had to live below the deck. The next morning, when the sun rose in the east, the storm finally retreated, leaving behind a boundless rainbow in the sky. At this moment, the air was filled with boiling magic. All the professionals on the warship, except for a few working crew members, sat cross-legged to meditate and train. They were pleasantly surprised to find that after the storm, the concentration of magic was more than 10 times that of the continent. What did this mean? This meant that their training speed would be 10 times faster. No wonder the creatures in the ocean are so strong. The magic here is too exaggerated. Burn Cinder did not lose all his memories. He was still the same as before, but he seemed to have forgotten about Gerdanaces as he muttered to himself. He took out a bottle of magic potion and consumed it. Then, he found a spot on the deck and sat cross-legged to train his battle energy. When the players from No. 1 High School saw this, they could only stare blankly. They could not feel any magic, and they could only rely on missions and killing monsters to level up. Fortunately, many players were well prepared. Some people took out homemade mahjong and poker cards. 3 or 4 people gathered together, and there were also players and NPCs watching from the side. Some people even made homemade chess, Go, and other high-energy games. They looked lonely and wanted to find an opponent. Among them, Chu Liuchio, a middle-aged man with thinning hair, took out a folding metal fishing rod. It was the kind that was enchanted with magic. Then he started fishing lazily. After a while, he actually managed to catch 2 beginner sea fish that were more than half a meter long. TSK. No wonder His Highness wants to go into the sea. This is a big win. Changli Jioga looked at the experience points that the fish could bring and said thoughtfully. But in the next moment, not only did Chu Liuchio's fishing rod break, but it was also pulled into the sea by a huge force. In the blink of an eye, Chief Officer Jack's eyes lit up. It was a big fish. He hurriedly ordered, "Kill that sea monster." Hearing a sound, dozens of cannons on the side opened, and more than 10 heavy crossbow bolts wrapped in chains shot out. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. The arrows that were imbued with magic came crashing down. 7 to 8 arrows that were more than a meter long pierced into the body of the big fish. Amidst the pain, he leaped up. Only then did the players see that it was a sea monster that was 7 to 8 meters long. What the F***CK? Is this a super large bluefin tuna? Forever alone swallowed. Unfortunately, no one paid attention to him. Then, a series of heavy chained arrows shot out. In a short period of time, the sea monster that had more than 100,000 HP was shot to death. Then, someone pulled the chain and pulled the 7 to 8 meters long fish onto the right side of the ship. Then, someone used a hook to hook the fish and pulled it onto the deck. The players glanced at the sea monsters that were attracted by the blood. They all knew. A trip on the sea, not only a storm. There would also be a feast, the kind that added experience points. It was not a loss. Chapter 177. There were many sea beasts, but there were very few who were unlucky. Dozens of huge sea beasts had been shot to death the day before. But these sea beasts were just a meal for the 3,000 crew members after the storm. The magic gradually dissipated. The huge sea beasts would not easily appear in the shallow waters, and they would not be easily shot to death. Last night's sumptuous dinner. Many professionals who were on their first voyage were very excited. But in the next 2 days, the ship fell into silence again. Many people drank to pass the time. After all, it was a short voyage. But because of the changeable weather, William did not use magical crystals as a power source. So the voyage was not fast. At this moment, someone stood on the deck and yawned. He looked at the light blue sea and felt a little frustrated. Many people wanted to conquer the sea, but they could not bear the torture of looking at the sea every day. Some people even developed a deep-sea phobia. If they stayed longer, they might develop mental illnesses such as depression. There was no doubt. The people in this world would also experience the same thing in the real world. Because many people liked the sea because it was fresh. When the excitement was over, if they were still on the sea, they would be endlessly frustrated. They looked forward to encountering magical islands one after another, treasures, and even encountering pirates for a fight. What they could not stand was the boring voyage day after day. William was also very helpless. But this was the reality. On the endless sea, if it was not on a busy route, the probability of meeting other ships was almost zero. On the 4th day after leaving the City of Dawn, many people on the deck shouted in surprise. The cheers became louder and louder. Many people ran to the deck to look at the spectacular scene. That was a storm. It was a storm that could not move. This thunderstorm was like a wall between the sky and the sea. It connected the sea and the sky. Lightning flashed, bloomed, and intertwined in the storm. Blue, purple, red, lightning of various colors rumbled. But more people discovered that the Dawn vessel did not slow down, nor did it change its direction. Instead, it rushed into the endless storm. The players could only swallow their saliva. They were full of doubts, but they chose not to be stubborn, because at this moment, most of the NPCs also chose to go below the deck. Move aside, I'll take the helm. William pushed Jack away and glanced at the compass one last time. After ordering his men to retract the sails, he slapped the compass into the center of the rudder. Crack! The compass was stuck in it. Casually, an unimaginable amount of mana suddenly poured out of the 99 magical energy crystals. It was an unimaginably huge amount of energy, giving people the feeling of a jet plane. Exaggerated waves rose from the stern of the ship, and the white foam was a few kilometers away. Meanwhile, everyone on the battleship felt a huge push on their backs. All of them leaned back as if they were sitting in a supercar. It felt so good that it was frightening. Some of the wine barrels that did not have a fixed position were scattered all over the place. Many of the wine spilled on the deck, causing the entire battleship to be filled with the aroma of wine. F***CK, what kind of speed is this? Is this really a battleship and not a rocket? Someone stretched his hand out of the muzzle. The exaggerated wind force made him feel like he was touching an F cup. Thus, he continued to grope her wretchedly. But with a click, The player who stretched out his hand let out a blood-curdling scream. His entire body was filled with electricity, and he died. This scene startled many people, and they withdrew their hands one after another. Chu Yochio, who was among them, silently closed the muzzle. He was as far away from the muzzle as he could, but the people below the deck could still see the shocking scenery outside through the gaps. That was an endless storm of lightning. The dawn vessel radiated with light, breaking the waves and riding the wind. In the sky, full of lightning, it was like the only living creature. At this moment, there were very few people standing on the deck. All of them were Thunder Element professionals. William gripped the rudder in his hand tightly. He faced the wind and waves and controlled the storm. He laughed as he conquered the sea that would never submit. A full half an hour passed. The people on the deck realized that the sound of the wind and waves had decreased. Many people opened the muzzle again, but they discovered that the battleship had passed through the storm and arrived in a new world. Groups of pterosaurs flew over the sea. Many players swallowed their saliva. This gave them the feeling that they had arrived in the Jurassic period. In particular, there was a huge island in front of them. The endless rainforest on the island was even more shocking. But it had to be said, in the era of the dragons, dinosaurs were everywhere, but in the gods' world, dinosaurs were called draconic beasts. Almost all the creatures on this island were dragons. Their blood flowed with the blood of the dragons. This was an island that was isolated from the rest of the world. This was an island that had been isolated since the era of the gods. This is Stormy Island. This is the place where the thunder god cut off his finger. William took a deep breath. He took out the compass and lowered the speed of the ship. Meanwhile, everyone went to the deck. Some people climbed the pole to the highest point and looked at the primitive island that was constantly emitting roars. Angry Fatty kept his live broadcast. When the camera flew to mid-air and the primitive island was presented to the audience, the comments started to flood the screen. Gosh, is this a pterosaur? Gosh, why can it spit fire? TSK, it feels like deja vu. Does this island have a nickname? Is it called Skeleton Island? Hee hee, let's not beat around the bush. Prince William said that it's called Stormy Island. This is a big side quest. When will Prince William build a teleportation portal so that we can go in and have some fun? What fun! I feel that the 100 players who were chosen will die a horrible death. Oh, I feel that you're right. The players were no longer fools. Because they had the ability to revive, they were used by the NPCs. They could imagine what was going to happen next. On this island that was full of danger, what could the players who were only level 30 do? They could only explore, send, and check for dangers. TSK. No matter which path they chose, they would die. However, everyone was well aware that His Royal Highness's reward was not just for show. William was very experienced. He found a beach where the warship could be docked and ordered 100 people stay on the warship. The rest head to the beach. Then he leaped down and used his battle energy to protect his body. He walked on the water and arrived at the beach in a few seconds. But the rest could only take the small boats to the beach in an orderly manner. They had to carry various supplies, equipment, and weapons. Because everyone knew this island was definitely not safe. Otherwise, the Lord would not have asked them to carry dozens of heavy crossbows. Chapter 178. William was the first to set foot on the magical Stormy Island. If there were no accidents, he was the first intelligent creature to set foot on this island in tens of thousands of years. That was right. William had entered the sea in advance to leave a footprint here. Of course, he was not just doing it for the 10,000 experience points reward. The island was filled with crystal-clear white beaches, tall and dense trees, large magical beasts, and strange small creatures. There were originally some lazy magical beast sea turtles on the beach, but when they saw someone appear, they widened their mung bean-sized eyes and ran away. That was right. They were very fast. Chu Yochio saw this scene and frowned. If an ordinary person came, he wouldn't even be able to catch a turtle. Wouldn't he starve to death here? Magical turtles that are over level 30. Fortunately, these creatures are afraid of strangers. If they really rushed over, we might not be able to defeat them. I've already seen 4 types of unknown creatures. They're all magical beasts. There are no wild beasts. Forever Alone gulped. These were all magical beasts. Even if their bloodlines were low, they had to rely on group tactics to defeat them. Many players had a premonition that they were going to die, but they did not expect to encounter so many magical beasts the moment they set foot on Stormy Island. William did not intend to set up camp near the beach. The most important thing now was to find a water source. Water mages could condense water, but a few water mages could not satisfy the long-term water needs of thousands of people. 10 people in a group. Let's advance. Be careful. After William gave his orders, he led the entire team deep into the primitive rainforest. The lush trees, vines, branches, and leaves, as well as many poisonous insects and snakes, could pose a fatal threat to them. Therefore, the warriors at the edge of the team would usually activate their battle energy shields. This time, William did not let his personal guards lead the way. He held 2 thunderblades and used his battle energy to cut down the obstructing trees and vines. Wherever he wanted to go, he would lead the way. There was strength in numbers. This was the advantage of a legion. Lautner was in the middle, and a revived Burn Cinder was at the back. This was a very long team. Even if they were not attacked in a short period of time, it did not mean that they would not be attacked in the future. William knew how dangerous the magical beasts on this island were. Otherwise, he would not have brought along Lautner and the legendary Burn Cinder. After walking a few kilometers in this primitive rainforest, everyone stopped to rest. Because the road was too difficult to walk on, and the temperature was so high that even though they were all professionals, they were still sweating profusely in this hot and stuffy weather. If not for the fact that everyone had brought enough water in advance, some of them would have started to dehydrate by now. You should know, dehydration would not only worsen one's physical condition, but it would also interfere with the functioning of one's brain, causing one's thoughts to be disrupted. If a player was severely dehydrated, many negative buffs would appear on their data templates. In particular, dozens of people in the team had been ambushed. However, poisonous insects, venomous snakes, and even some ferocious little dragon beasts were extremely annoying. Some of the magical beast monkeys actually ran up the tree with stones and attacked them. Of course, they would retaliate. However, in the rainforest environment, the pure-blooded elves also felt that it was very troublesome. There were too many obstacles, and it was far from easy to hit the target. Their agility was also completely restricted in the rainforest, because there were vines and lush leaves everywhere. There were also poisonous insects and creatures everywhere. If they were not careful, they could be attacked. This was also the key reason why the elves lived in the forest, but not in the rainforest. But no matter what, in this environment, the elves and half-elves were more adaptable than the humans. William looked at the compass again. His target was the Thunder God's Ring, the Thunder Warhorses, and the various resources here. It was inevitable that they would have to continue to the south, and they would have to travel tens of kilometers. If there are no accidents, after a while, we should be able to encounter those silver-backed monkeys, right? William thought of those monkeys with high bloodline. Not only were there middle-level monkeys, but there were also advanced monkeys. For a moment, he really wanted to take a detour. But these monkeys were very territorial, and they were too difficult to deal with. Their territory was very large, and he did not know how long it would take to take a detour. Forget it. Let's set up camp first. Hence, William continued to lead them south. Not long after, more than 2,000 people finally encountered a narrow river. The river was clear and transparent, and some palm-sized fish swam quickly in the water. This proved that the water was drinkable. But for safety's sake, William decided to let the entire army drink boiled water in case they encountered any troublesome parasites. Logically speaking, everyone was a professional, and their battle energy would automatically eliminate some small creatures. But their levels were still too low. Only 600 people in the Breaking Wave Legion were middle-level professionals, while the rest were beginner-level professionals. It was the same for the players. Their life levels were far from surpassing mortals. Naturally, they could clearly feel the cold and heat. In many cases, The beginner-level professionals who did not activate their battle energy shields were only slightly stronger than ordinary people in terms of physical fitness. Lautner had a bad habit of drinking on the ship. He gulped down a few mouthfuls of wine and could not help but mutter, "This island is not simple. I have already discovered tens of magical beasts, but there is not a single wild beast. I feel that it is very dangerous here. It is better to rest for now. After all, many people in the Legion do not have strong physical fitness." Cinder had caught a small dinosaur from somewhere. He had pierced it with his sword. His left hand was burning with flames, and he was roasting the meat. William turned his head and looked at the soldiers. They were all too tired to set up camp. He thought for a while and said, "All right, let's rest here. As for the future, we could discuss it at length." He suddenly understood. He had been a little anxious. This island was not a place that they should enter at this time. In his previous life, most players had advanced before they came to explore Stormy Island. Even if the players were generally weaker, it did not mean that NPCs could take on all kinds of adventures. But it is better to obtain the Thunder God's Ring as soon as possible. He glanced at his own level. He had finally reached level 69 with the help of the Instance Dungeon Crystal. He was just one step away from leveling up. That was the occupation change mission. But it had to be said, his unlucky luck was really good. He had actually obtained a challenge mission, and it is a solo challenge against an advanced magical beast. At this moment, William could not help but twitch the corner of his mouth. He did not know when his bad luck would turn for the better. But before he went out to sea, he had clearly touched the unicorn. But in the end, it was still the same. Oh. He had reached level 69 on the ship. If there were no accidents, the unicorn would have sucked in his luck again. He could imagine that touching the unicorn would not change his luck. But if I can officially advance to advanced, then the creatures on this island should not be too much of a threat to me. William knew that there were some abnormally strong creatures on this island. But those top-level magical beasts not only lived alone, but there were also very few of them. They all had their own positions. As long as he did not provoke them, he would be safe and sound, but since he wanted to fight one-on-one, he had to choose a more powerful opponent to show off his bravery. Chapter 179. The second day after arriving at Stormy Island, the army did not continue to advance. Instead, they used the campsite as a base to expand the area. The surrounding trees were cut down, and many deep pits were dug with many sharp pieces of wood. This kind of trap was time-consuming and laborious, but it was very effective. Of course, in order to prevent the beasts from going berserk, they had also built simple defensive walls around them. Every night, the entire camp was filled with bonfires. In many cases, it was enough to deter those magical beasts from acting rashly. Although they had magic, they were more intelligent than wild beasts, and it was their nature to be afraid of fire. However, when they saw the bonfire, many players' eyes lit up, and they really wanted to shoot an arrow at it. Fortunately, none of them dared to do so, or else His Royal Highness would really teach them a lesson. "Your Highness, food is not a problem for the time being. This island is surrounded by storms, but there are still many sea beasts in the sea that can provide us with a lot of food. Coupled with the food we brought over, it won't be a problem to last for 3 months." Knox trotted all the way, carrying a hook axe to report. William nodded nonchalantly. Of course, he knew that food was not a problem. The key was to explore further. This island was very large. It was 1/3 of the southeast corner of the island. The place where they landed was the closest to the Thunder Warhorses. William had no intention of changing their landing point. The prince stroked his chin and thought for a moment. "Go ahead and do what you need to do. Help me call Lautner and Cinder over." Understood. Not long after, William saw the two of them walking over, sweating profusely. Building a camp was a physical job. Other than the Lord, everyone else had to roll up their sleeves and start working. Players were also the main force at that moment. William felt a little regretful. Why didn't he bring more players? Anyway, with experience, they could work hard. "My lord, you guys take a rest. Then, accompany me to check out the road ahead." William knew that it was the territory of the silver-backed apes, so he naturally did not dare to enter rashly. Lautner and Burned Cinder glanced at each other. Lautner picked up a glass of wine and started drinking, while Burned Cinder took out some roasted meat from somewhere and started eating. But just as Burned Cinder was about to eat, he smiled at William and carefully tore off a piece of meat, passing it to William. The prince decisively refused. Who knows where you got the barbecue from? When some players saw this scene, they could not help but gasp. Was this the aura of philosophy? Fortunately, no one took it seriously. After all, they all knew that His Royal Highness had a little princess at home. But at this moment, an accident occurred. A player who was taking a break from his busy schedule and resting in the bushes suddenly screamed. Then there was no sound. That player resurrected in the camp. An 8 to 9 meter long, bucket-thick python covered in white scales slowly appeared in front of everyone. The moment he raised his head, everyone could only look up. Many players sucked in a breath of cold air. A level 65 cloud-gulping python, a high-level boss. Retreat. Everyone retreat. Lautner hurriedly shouted as he tossed the bottle of wine away. However, some players still made their move. Arrows and battle energy struck the giant python, but they did not cause any damage to it. Not even a scratch was left on its scales. William cursed silently. When he saw that the cloud-gulping python was about to charge into the crowd, he immediately charged forward. 2 thunderblades appeared and slashed at the python's head. Roar! The cloud-gulping python suddenly turned its head and opened its bloody mouth wide. A visible sound wave blasted out and instantly blew William away. His body was like a kite with a broken string, smashing into a huge tree and revealing a human shape. The strength of the cloud-gulping python was shocking. It quickly moved its body, wanting to swallow William in one bite. Burned Cinder and Lautner moved forward at the same time. Their battle energy and fire pillars caused great damage to the python. At this moment, William suddenly stepped forward and leaped into the air. His thunder blade instantly slashed across the python's abdomen. Puffed. Fresh blood splattered on the ground. Electric arcs covered the entire body of the giant python. In the next moment, William sheathed his blades, and the lightning stopped flashing. He slowly walked away with his back facing the giant python. When the cloud-gulping python landed on the ground, its huge body also fell to the ground. Its body kept twisting, spinning, and rolling, but after a few breaths, the level 60 magical beast was still dead. A group of players could not help but swallow their saliva. Instant kill, but they still saw that the sword had not only cut open the scales, but also the heart within the scales. Some players who had recorded the video realized that when the heart of the giant python was cut open, an electric current caused the heart to completely stop beating. So, the giant python was actually already dead when the sword slashed across its body. The tumbling of the giant python just now was just a reaction of his nerves after he died. So precise. Forever Alone swallowed his saliva. Could it be that Prince William had deliberately been hit by the sound wave? As expected of the city lord, a magical beast with 80,000 to 90,000 health points was killed in one strike. How fierce! The players were still cheering for the victory. They were going to have a feast today. After all, it was all experience points, and they could even increase the attributes of some magical beasts. But William was deep in thought, because the south was clearly the territory of the silver-backed monkeys. Logically speaking, there should not be cloud-gulping pythons here. Did I come too early? Is it the territory of the cloud-gulping pythons? William suddenly thought of the huge creature and could not help but swallow his saliva. He decided not to wait any longer. He would go and scout the path first. As for Burned Cinder and Lautner, they were guarding the campsite. At this moment, some players wanted to follow him. William glanced at Angry Fatty and nodded thoughtfully. You are still too weak. Be careful when you follow me. Don't shoot randomly. Understood, understood. I have already reprimanded those who attacked just now. Prince William, you don't have to worry about this happening again. Chu Liuchio nodded. Hence, Chu Liuchio, Forever Alone, Chongli Jioga, Angry Fatty, and Xiao Ian went to scout the path with William. It was easy to travel with fewer people. There was no need to scout everywhere. Moreover, the cloud-gulping pythons often passed by this place. They could choose to follow the beasts, and it would save them the trouble of finding their own paths. Half an hour later, after William and the rest walked for 4 to 5 kilometers, they finally saw a shocking scene. It was a battlefield. It was the battlefield of the giant monkeys and pythons. There were broken trees everywhere. Streams were flooded, and huge corpses were everywhere. A 10-meter-tall, silver-backed monkey was carrying the corpse of a 10-meter python and violently using it as a whip to hit other pythons. Some pythons that did not dodge carefully were hit by the corpse of their own kind. They were sent flying. Trees were broken, and their scales fell in droves. Blood was everywhere. A giant python of 7 or 8 meters suddenly sprang out and wrapped around the silver-backed ape, but it only roared and suddenly bit the head of the giant python. Crack. Crack. The 7-meter python instantly became a headless python. The battle continued. The gigantic monkey that was leading the pack was even more perverted. It was like a mini King Kong. Gosh, who can withstand it? Angry Fatty swallowed his saliva. William pretended not to hear and raised his eyebrows. But the others gradually turned to look at him. William felt a little pain in his heart. Why did it feel like déjà vu? Chapter 180. William was not a coward like Lautner, so he could withstand the attacks. But I have to become an advanced first, right? William stroked his chin. Territorial battles were common among magical beasts, especially on an island with dense magic power. The land was not large, but the bloodlines of the magical beasts were very high. When various races encountered each other, they had to fight for territory in order to survive. Otherwise, the territory would be small, and the resources would be small. Eventually, the race would perish. The weak were prey to the strong, and only the fittest survived. This principle was very suitable no matter where it was. The most important thing was, the magical beasts on this island were not low in intelligence. They all understood one principle. The island was too small, and there were not many resources. Whenever a race expanded to the limit, even if it was not to expand the territory, there would be a war, and the population would be reduced. Advanced magical beasts? Do you think Prince William will participate in the war? Chongli Jioga pointed to the front and suddenly muttered. Pa, Xiao Ayan slapped his head and raised her eyebrows. Are you stupid? Do you want Prince William to be eaten? Yes, if Prince William is eaten, we won't have any experience points. It's better not to be eaten. Chongli Jioga touched his head, and the others nodded in unison. William saw that they were looking at him with a boss, please cherish your life expression. He suddenly felt bitter, but he could not say it out loud. He wanted to ask these players, do I look stupid? But he had to say it. William had helped the black lava beasts to attack the steel beasts. In the end, not only did he not earn anything, but he also suffered losses. This made many people feel that he was very stupid. Fortunately, he did not suffer too much. The players did not lose out on the rewards. This made many players feel that Prince William had a bright future, so they continued to follow him. After all, their levels were still low, and it was not time to change factions. Just look at the players who went to the Northern Grand Duchy in advance on the forum, and you'd know how miserable they were. William carefully surveyed the battlefield. The advanced silver-backed ape was the leader of these apes. But the leader of the cloud-gulping pythons did not appear. This made him suddenly have an idea. He had to kill it. He did not need to do too many things. He could use Fury of Thunder, Light of Dawn, and Battle Energy Slash. He was confident that he could kill an advanced magical beast if he hit a fatal spot. The key was, what if Thunder Fury didn't activate? But this is a rare opportunity. Since the occupation mission has been given, the better I complete it, the better the rewards will be. I'll take a gamble and turn a bicycle into a motorcycle. Even if I can't defeat them, I can still outrun them. William pondered for a while and waved his hand. He led a group of bewildered players to the left. Along the way, he could often see the path that the giant python had taken. In fact, some of the paths had already hardened. The 5 players gulped. If they were swallowed by the python, they wouldn't even have a chance to resurrect and pick up their equipment. Who knew if he could get his equipment from the giant python's stomach if he killed it again? Even if it dropped, the durability should be gone, right? The stomach acid of this kind of magical beast must be extremely exaggerated. William held the compass and kept touching the same location. Finally, after walking for 7 or 8 miles, the group avoided some of the cloud-gulping pythons that were rushing to join the battle, and they finally arrived at a mountain stream. Or perhaps it was more like a sinkhole that was 100 meters deep. Chu Liuqiu poked his head out and glanced at the bottom of the crater. Gulp! Oh my God! Chu Liuqiu trembled as he retreated a few steps. He didn't dare to make a sound. The other four also looked down curiously. Almost at the same time, they shrank back and silently gulped. There were no groups of snakes below, and it was not the time for the cloud-gulping pythons to mate. But the cloud-gulping python that was tens of meters long was coiled around the stone pillar. It looked like a giant. When it was sleeping, it emitted an aura that made people not dare to approach it. There were no other cloud-gulping pythons in the entire sinkhole. There was only this one. Without a doubt, this was the final boss of the cloud-gulping pythons. The most important thing was this cloud-gulping python was actually a legendary boss. It was a pity. William glanced down. He was actually eager to try. Xiao Ian and the rest felt that something was wrong. Was Prince William going to kill it? Was he going to kill it? Chu Liuqiu hesitated and wanted to say something. In the end, the prince abruptly pulled out 2 thunderblades and leaped down. Gosh, this is definitely a leap of faith. It's too much faith. I have a premonition that I'll be resurrected in the city. The 5 of them had started to mourn for William, but they quickly climbed to the entrance of the pit and looked at the figure. At that moment, the leader of the cloud-gulping pythons seemed to have sensed danger. Or perhaps it heard the sound of the rapid descent. Suddenly, it opened its huge eyes. At the same time, it silently opened its huge mouth. After all, it didn't expect that fast food would be delivered to its doorstep while it was taking a nap. William kicked his legs anxiously in midair. His movement range was not large. He suddenly sensed something. He seemed to have thought wrongly. If he unleashed his full power, he could kill this level 86 high-tier python. But the crucial thing was, he didn't expect the python to have such a big mouth. Motherf ***, can your mouth not be as big as a small house? A wolf in the 31st version doesn't have a mouth either. I'm going to explode your head. What are you doing? You're committing a sin. Ah. A series of screams filled the sky. Gulp. The great lord of the city of Dawn was swallowed in one gulp. Angry Fatty was doing a live broadcast. For a moment, the live broadcast room was extremely quiet, but before the others could start spamming the bullet screen, many people discover a problem. That was, the python that was coiled around the stone pillar was not having a good time. Everyone could see lightning emitting from its body. When William slid down its esophagus, 2 thunderblades were inserted on both sides of its body. The cloud-gulping python coiled around the towering stone pillar and continued to slide down. The thunderblade slid down along with the momentum and directly slashed from the mouth to the end. William didn't make a head-exploding attack. However, the first 3 layers of attacks were successful, and the fury of thunder unexpectedly turned into a lucky one. He made an exaggerated attack in the cloud-gulping python's mouth. Then, a series of critical attacks in the internal cavity. The python slid down for a full 7 to 8 seconds, exploding, roaring, entering the stomach. When he hit the stomach acid, the boss fell to the ground with its body tilted. Fortunately, it was coiled around the stone pillar and didn't fall to the ground. But because it was coiled around the stone pillar and its head was facing upwards, William had the opportunity to do so. Its mouth was exploding. It didn't roar. The players were extremely quiet. They swallowed their saliva and silently looked down. Less than a minute had passed. The cloud-gulping python's huge mouth slowly opened. At the same time, a blood-soaked figure slowly walked out of it. At this moment, the screen was filled with 6,666 comments, forever alone, and the others were dumbfounded. They silently gave a thumbs up. His Highness is the only one in the entire legendary continent who has such a bold thinking ability, killing a legendary magical beast in seconds. Chapter 181. putting aside the reward for killing the advanced legendary python. After William completed the occupation change mission, he immediately chose to advance. You have successfully advanced to an advanced professional. You have reached level 70. All 5 attributes have increased by 1, including charm. You have obtained 4 free attribute points and 4 Omni points from the 2 legendary manuals. Because you have become an advanced professional, all 4 attributes have increased by 10. Because you have Elven Bloodline, charm is increased by 10. Because you have become an advanced professional, your endowment, power of thunder, intermediate life, and intermediate magic have all been upgraded. Because you have become an advanced professional, you have obtained a new endowment, beginner level flying skill. William took a deep breath. Other endowments aside, the most important thing was to upgrade from intermediate life to advanced life. From then on, 1 point of physical strength equals 60 health points. It was simple. He was going to use his health points to crush his enemies. Players had endowments too, but they did not have the blessing of Bloodline. A level 70 legendary boss would increase all their attributes by 70%. Even the worst beginner-level Bloodline would increase all their attributes by 7% at level 70. For NPCs, the higher their level, the more their attributes would increase. Although after NPCs reached level 100, the blessing of Bloodline would be fixed. But imagine a level 200 legendary boss. All their attributes would increase by 100%. How terrifying was that? Furthermore, NPCs' endowments were often easier to obtain and upgrade than players' endowments. Your battle energy and meditation manuals have exceeded the upper limit of level 30 and can reach level 45. You have exceeded the upper limit of level 15 and can reach level 23. You have obtained a new skill. Dawn Assault, Soul Explosion, Power of the Saint Spirit. Next, William opened the long-awaited interface. It had to be said. William missed him very much and looked forward to seeing him. Usually, he did not dare to look at it, because there was always a hidden evil that hurt his weak heart. William Blackleaf, Occupation, Guardian of Dawn, Race, Half-Elf, Title, Beginner-Level Dragon Slayer, Bloodline Potential, Legendary, Level 70 Basic Attributes plus 70%, Endowment, Handsome, Passive, Endowment, Advanced Life, 1 point of Physical Strength equals 60 health points. Endowment, Advanced Magic, 1 point of Intelligence equals 1. From Magic Attack Power, Talent, Power of Thunder. You have 20% Thunder Attribute Attack Power and 30% Thunder Resistance. Thunder Fury, Upgraded. Beginner Ranked Flying Spell. Consume battle energy to allow yourself to fly. Maximum limit is 300 meters. Maximum speed is 50 kilometers per hour. Friendly reminder. This is the flying technique of taking a beating. Level 70 Experience 233/273540. Age 17. Health points 16,980 plus 3,500 plus 3,000 plus 2,600 equals 26080. Health after Bloodline bonus 35,866. Endurance 4,780 plus 2,300 plus 400. The basic attributes are as follows. Frowny Face Power 485 plus 45 plus 30 plus 135. Stamina 158 plus 45 plus 30 plus 50. Agility 500 plus 45 plus 30 plus 112. Intelligence 156 plus 28 plus 64 plus 10. Special attributes are as follows. Charm 193 plus 42. Luck 3. Holy Dawn Warrior Energy Level Legendary Attribute Thunder Level 35 0/145300 EXP Battle Energy Points 6,500/6,500 points. Recovery Speed 170 points per second. Activated special effects and skills are as follows. Special effect. Any battle energy skill will be increased by 25% and carry 180 points of thunder attribute attack. Special effect. Power plus 45. Stamina plus 45. agility plus 45, intelligence plus 28, special effect, health plus 3,500, special effect, endurance plus 2,300, battle energy shield. The surface of the body can produce a battle energy shield equal to the battle energy value. It consumes 120 battle energy value per second. The basic defense is 850. If the attack power exceeds the upper limit of the defense, it can consume battle energy value and even break the shield. Thunder special effect. Close combat attacks on the shield can easily trigger the thunder reflection, causing the enemy to receive a negative buff. After the shield disappears, the shield can be activated again after 5 seconds. Light of Dawn. On a certain battle energy skill, it can increase the attack power by 290% and 450 points of thunder attribute damage. The cooldown is 18 minutes. Every 5 levels, it can increase the attributes, special effects, skills, etc. The attributes added by battle energy have the effect of bloodline bonus. Holy Soul Magic, Grade, Legendary, Level, LV35, 12345/137300, Mana Value, 6,500 points. Recovery Speed, 170 points per second. Special Effect, your magic resistance increases by 5%. Special Effect, Power plus 30, Stamina plus 30, Agility plus 30, Intelligence plus 64. Special Effect, Health plus 3,000. Special Effect, Magic attack power increases by 25% and carries 180 points of soul attribute damage. Life Sacrifice, you can extract the soul of a weak enemy, health less than 10%, and can replenish 40% of their health. Distance, within 15 meters, cooldown, 2 minutes, Holy Soul Blessing. You condense a holy soul in your body. Every time the enemy attacks in close combat, the Holy Soul has a certain chance to block and counterattack. Consumption, none. Cooldown, none. Dawn Impact, new. LV, skill attribute. Transform into the body of Dawn and hit the creatures within 100 meters in a straight line. All obstacles will be judged according to the environment. Amplification. When using this skill, your own attributes will increase by 50 points of defense. Battle Energy Shield will increase by 50 points of defense, and movement speed will increase by 20%. Weakness. After using this skill, you can only forcibly stop and cannot change direction. Consumption. Every 30 meters will consume 50 battle energy. Cooldown, 5 minutes. Soul Explosion, new. LV, skill attribute. Condense mental strength into a needle and stab it at the enemy. It can cause 180 plus. Magic attack X 120%. Soul attribute damage. Casting speed. Instant. Consumption. 50 points of magic. Cooldown. 5 minutes. Power of the Holy Soul. New. LV skill attribute. You will receive the blessing of the Holy Soul. All attributes will increase by 5%. Attack, defense, and movement speed will each increase by 5%. Duration, 30 seconds. Consumption, every second 30 points of battle energy and magic. Cooldown, 10 hours. After a period of unable to resist the evolution, William lay on the head of the giant python and silently endured it. After a while, he gradually recovered. At this moment, William licked his lips happily. He did not care about the snake blood on his body. He muttered, "With the blessing of the bloodline, my health has completely exceeded the 30,000 mark. I'm now a meat shield." Of course, there was still a gap between him and a real meat shield. If he was a legendary shield bearer, his health would be more than 70,000 so. It was also relatively speaking, at least to the players, with his health, movement speed, attack, and other aspects, he could completely suppress them without hesitation. The 3 new skills are very good. Among them, the power of the Holy Soul is even more awesome. If the level is high, it can be said to be a dragon's blood transformation. William stood on the head of the cloud-gulping python and laughed. When the 5 players above his head heard this voice, they were a little scared and trembled. William still remembered that his Holy Soul blessing had no consumption and no cooldown. It really depended on luck. In the past year, he had fought in many battles, big and small, but he had not triggered it even once. The prince even suspected that the holy soul in his body had forgotten about his master. Otherwise, even if he was unlucky, it should have been triggered once. Chapter 182. Prompt: You have killed the legendary boss Cloud Gulping Python. Prompt: You have obtained 330,000 experience. Prompt: You have obtained the warm corpse of the Cloud Gulping Python. Prompt: You have killed 3 legendary creatures. You can activate the Legendary Hunter mission. William raised his eyebrows in surprise. He did not expect such a mission. Let's not talk about that mission. Advanced magical beasts have magical crystals. William slowly opened his hand, and a blue magical crystal the size of a baby's fist appeared. A cool breeze brushed past his fingertips, and wind-type magic bloomed. Level 86, Cloud Gulping Python Magical Crystal. Quality: Legendary. Position level: Advanced Attribute: Wind. Other than a few giant dragons, phoenixes, and other super creatures, other magical beasts can only produce magical crystals when they reach an advanced level. William took out a small box and placed the magical crystal inside. He activated the magical barrier before putting it into the space ring. Then he waved his hand again. The huge corpse of the cloud-gulping python was kept into the space ring. That was right. After a long period of networking, William successfully asked Moses for a space ring. It had a length, width, and height of 30 meters. Although it was smaller than the space ring that he had borrowed before, it was enough to store the cloud-gulping python. It had to be known. To the players, the magical beasts in this world were extremely ferocious. Killing a magical beast of the same level required a lot of manpower. Many players died, and their equipment was lost, not to mention that their companions would steal it. There was also a high chance of being killed. But there were also many items dropped by the magical beasts. The most important was the materials from the magical beasts. As long as they could bring the materials back in one piece, it meant that they had struck it rich, so the effort and the return were completely proportional. But in the near future, although space rings would be common, they would be very small. A large guild might not be able to afford a space ring with a length, width, and height of 10 meters, even if they pooled their money together. This also caused the players and NPCs to only be able to collect the key materials after killing the magical beasts. Most of the materials could only be thrown away. It's shameful to waste it. Fortunately, I never waste it. This wind magical crystal has many uses. It can be used to make staffs, feed wind-type magical beasts, cut it into pieces, and embed it into equipment. In short, it has many uses and is very valuable. After all, it's a legendary magical crystal. For the natives, the mana contained in it is extraordinary. William wasn't too interested in the magical crystal that could be sold for tens of thousands of gold coins. Because he was not a player. He did not care about the value of a high-level legendary magical crystal. He was more concerned about what this cloud-gulping python had and how much it could benefit his army. If there are no accidents, the scales, tendons, and teeth of this cloud-gulping python can equip dozens of soldiers. At this moment, the advanced William slowly raised his head and looked at the players who were staring at him. Hence, he bent his knees slightly and exerted force with his feet. Bang! He shot into the sky like a cannonball. However, when William was 10 meters away from the entrance of the pit, he slowed down. However, he could fly. Battle energy seemed to be emitting from his feet, allowing him to fly rapidly in front of them. Then he slowly landed. Prince William, have you reached the advanced level? Chu Yochio gulped. Was it that cool to have a breakthrough during a battle? Tisk tisk. Xiao Ian swayed her 36D and shook her head in confusion. You're the protagonist of a novel. Have a breakthrough during a battle? Yes, I accidentally broke through. Let's go back first. William casually glanced at the annoying meatball. He indicated that it was a basic operation and that there was no need to be shocked. Gosh, I accidentally broke through. He looked so relaxed. The legendary boss is indeed awesome. Prince William is awesome. The comments in Fatty's live broadcast did not stop. Many of the players in the City of Dawn had already started to spread the news. forever alone, and the other four could only silently sigh. They had followed the right person. Prince William was definitely the protagonist. They just did not know who was stronger, William or the current king of the Black Lava Nation. When William brought his people back to the campsite, Lautner and Burned Cinder immediately discovered that William was different. It was not that he had concealed his aura. It was that his sharp battle energy was too dazzling. The two of them, who were also close to breaking through, widened their eyes. After all, they were the ones who were close to reaching the advanced. But they did not expect that the Lord would break through to the advanced first. Lautner looked at William's youthful face. If not for the fact that he was covered in blood, many people would have thought that he was a child, but he could not help but ask, "My lord, have you reached the advanced?" "Huh. I encountered an advanced cloud-gulping python. When I was fighting it to the death, I accidentally broke through." William scratched his head and said embarrassedly, "Hiss, advanced cloud-gulping python." Lautner inhaled a breath of cold air. He felt a lingering fear. If the Lord had not broken through during the battle, he would have died. He would have had to return to the Dark Knight City to retire. But why did he say that he accidentally broke through? Lautner was a little depressed. He had sensed that he was about to break through, but he was stuck at this stage. Burned Cinder did not say a word. He held the newly forged Dragon Slayer blade and sat cross-legged. He had decided to keep up with the Lord. He did not want to be abandoned. In that case, the silver-backed monkeys and the cloud-gulping pythons are fighting over the territory ahead? Lautner asked, slightly puzzled. Burned Cinder raised his eyebrows. If it is really like what the Lord said, we can't go over, right? After all, everyone knew that even if the Lord had broken through to the advanced, his combat power was not to be underestimated. But if he was alone, how could he fight against a group of muscular gorillas that were more than 10 meters tall? If he was careless and was caught? TSK. What if he encountered an abnormal giant ape? In fact, William knew that he could not defeat so many magical beasts. But coincidentally, he had the corpse of the cloud-gulping python's boss, hence. He smiled mysteriously and led his 500 personal guards, Lautner, and the rest to the battlefield. The sun was about to set. When they arrived at the battlefield, which was filled with the corpses of large magical beasts, many of them swallowed their saliva and gripped their weapons tightly. They did not know why the cloud-gulping pythons had retreated, but the silver-backed monkeys did not. They thought that they had won. All of them patted their chests and roared in celebration. But now, a group of small insects had appeared. They seemed to want to snatch their territory. But they also sensed William's aura, and even the aura of the cloud-gulping python's blood. Hence, the leader of the silver-backed monkeys fiercely leaped and crashed in front of the team like a small mountain. Grass and flowers flew everywhere, and a huge pit appeared on the ground. Just as the silver-backed monkey was about to demonstrate its power, William stretched out his fist. He gently released it. Bang! A cloud-gulping python that was more than 20 meters long blocked the path of the two. The silver-backed monkey bent its back and hurriedly took 2 steps back, as if it was frightened. But William walked to the cloud-gulping python's head and used his leg to kick it. The silver-backed monkey leader understood. He bent his back and put his hands on the ground. He carefully approached William. Then he stepped forward and gave a kick. Boom! The cloud-gulping python's head cracked. Boom, boom, boom. More than 10 consecutive kicks. The legendary boss's head had become minced meat. William looked conflicted. He could not help but hold the hilt of his sword. He could vaguely see that the cloud-gulping python's sharp teeth had been crushed. That was a good material for forging dark gold weapons. But when the silver-backed monkeys saw that their old enemy was dead, they decisively patted their chest and laughed foolishly at William. Then they left without a care. Oh, their cries were continuous. Then dozens of large silver-backed monkeys dragged the corpses of their comrades away from the battlefield. They entered the dense forest and disappeared completely. Is it over? Someone scratched his head and asked. Seems to be done. William glanced at the dozens of python corpses on the battlefield. This was what it meant to be rich. Fortunately, he did not attack. Chapter 183. 3 days before William entered Stormy Island. The humans and the local magical beast, the silverbacked monkeys, formed a friendship. It was a good start. The silverbacked monkeys did not like to eat the cloud-gulping pythons. They did not even take their corpses with them. This undoubtedly brought great benefits to the City of Dawn. There are 33 corpses of cloud-gulping pythons. One of them is an advanced, 13 of them are intermediate, and the rest are all beginner. They're all big fellows. I can make almost 200 sets of high-quality equipment. It's like picking them up for free. It's not a loss. William touched his chin excitedly. He could not help but start to think whether he should be a bad guy or not. As long as the fur, scales, teeth, and claws of the magical beasts were used appropriately, it would not be a problem to make a set of gold equipment for the Legion. What was this? It was awesome. Good friend. For any national legion, gold equipment of the same level was considered top-notch. The empires could not afford to give a large number of dark gold equipment to the Legion. They could not afford to make too many. But if they had a legion of gold equipment and professionals with advanced bloodlines, they would be invincible in the southeast, for example, causing the entire island to fight for supremacy with the magical beasts, then taking the opportunity to gain some benefits. Let's not talk about other things. If I cause a war between two magical beast tribes, I can use the space ring to take the corpses. I will be rich. Stormy Island is rich in resources. Coupled with the rare or veins, if I can take over half, no, even 1/10 of the island. Even if the City of Dawn is invaded by the darkness, it will still be safe. William thought of many evil ideas in his mind, but thinking about the future, thinking about the slow reproduction rate of the magical beasts, William gradually gave up on this idea. Sustainable development is the most important thing. If I do this, the initial profits will be very good. It will be very huge. But there are many disadvantages to the extinction of the magical beasts. William pondered. The disadvantages were very simple. The magical beasts on Stormy Island were in a balanced state. If the balance was broken, it would be like a fuse. The magical beasts would fight for territories and even exterminate the entire tribe. Because everyone wanted resources, they would take advantage of the enemy's weakness to kill them. It was similar to the war between the silverbacked monkeys and the cloud-gulping pythons. Because there were too many tribes and there were not enough resources, some had to die. That was why such a war would occur. Even the cloud-gulping python boss couldn't be bothered to make a move. Winning or losing wasn't much of a threat to it. This was because the cloud-gulping python boss was incredibly powerful. As long as it didn't die, its entire race wouldn't go extinct, and no one would dare to destroy its race. In particular, both sides did not want others to reap the benefits. After all, they had lived for so long and were all beast spirits. What's more, if all the magical beasts died and there were only a few left, they wouldn't be of any use to train soldiers in the future. In addition, if too many magical beasts died, they could not be used at all. William's space ring could not hold too many things. The magical beast meat would rot away sooner or later. After all, magical beast meat was one of the most important sources of EXP for professionals. If an NPC wanted to become stronger, in addition to training day and night, they also needed to eat a lot of magical beast meat, potions, and so on. This was how interesting the Gods' Continent was. Professionals had to rely on all sorts of treasures to become stronger and grow. The higher the bloodline, the better the talent, and the faster the cultivation. Those with lower bloodlines would have lower talent, and cultivation would be slower. It was not as easy for them as the players to level up. They just had to complete missions and kill monsters, and they would level up quickly. But as long as they reached a high level of bloodline, their talents would be considered outstanding, and they would level up at the same speed as the players. That's right, this was one of the reasons why the players didn't dare to be too arrogant in the later stages, especially for professionals who were above the Grandmaster level. They could level up faster than the players, provided that they had all sorts of resources. As long as they didn't die in the early stages, the later stages were really fierce. Moreover, with the appearance of the Darkness Invasion, the magic of the entire world also started to recover, and it became denser. This also led to more people possessing better talents. That was the great era of magic. That was the golden age of battle energy. That was the beginning of the fourth era. In this colorful era, there seemed to be many chosen ones, but in front of countless genius professionals that didn't shine too brightly. Moreover, the enemies that the players would face in the later stages were far from these leftovers in the southeast corner. When that time came, they would venture deep into the legendary continent, the endless sea, and even the dark world, and so on, when all sorts of wars started. When the dense magic expanded to the entire continent, the empires, kingdoms, and grand duchies that had been passed down for thousands of years also entered the era of rapid training. At that moment, all the races were fighting for the future. At that moment, the throne of the fourth era was not clear. At that moment, the races that had unified the continent took out their stored resources to provide to the professionals, because they wanted to become the masters of the fourth era. In addition to the military strength that they already had, the lives of the players were getting more and more difficult. It was not any easier than a wolf in the 32nd era. When William thought of this, he couldn't help but want to cry. I thought I was a prince, but now I'm like a dead son. I'm so poor that I want to die. He didn't have enough resources. The geographical location of the City of Dawn was good. It was near the corpses of the gods, and it had many rare mines. But its resources were too lacking. Sigh, I'll take it slow. At least I have to turn Stormy Island into my backyard. He sighed. The resources would slowly increase. The method of killing the goose that laid the golden eggs was only applicable to individual experts. As a lord, he couldn't do such a thing until the city was destroyed. Although he said that he was not considered to be arrogant on Stormy Island. He had just reached the advanced level. If he didn't risk his life and didn't have any luck, he would have to flee if he encountered many advanced magical beasts. Magical beasts were not intelligent races. Their bodies were huge, and their health points were so high that it made one's hair stand on end. Even though they had fatal spots and could be killed in one shot, they could also be killed in an instant. And there are too few fools like the cloud-gulping pythons. William glanced at the corpses of the cloud-gulping pythons. Some rangers were skinning them and pulling out their tendons. Their huge scales were taken off piece by piece, and their thick, long, and sharp teeth were pulled out. The fresh blood was put into an empty wine barrel and sealed by a magician. These valuable materials would be brought back by the Dawn vessel. The dwarven blacksmiths would be in charge of creating high-quality armor and weapons. At the same time, the next legion would be brought here. Without a doubt, a mere 3,000 soldiers would not be of much use here. Stormy Island would need at least 2 legions to gain a foothold. Meanwhile, Space Archmage Olban was also coming. He had finished building the teleportation portal in the City of Dawn. He was going to build another teleportation portal here. But the cost of building the teleportation portal is too high. William felt a stabbing pain in his heart. Although he had never stopped trading with the new Blue Moon town, the materials for the teleportation portal were too precious. However, the materials for the space gate were too precious. Even if not all elves were disgusted with the half-blood prince, they would not lower the price for him in this kind of transaction. The price was so high that it made people want to vomit blood. 500,000 gold coins. If I hadn't swindled and stolen from the Iron Nation's treasury, I wouldn't have gotten 500,000 gold coins. Chapter 184. On the fourth day, William and the others watched as the Dawn battleship entered the storm. In 3 to 5 days, the next batch of legions would arrive. There was no doubt about the loyalty of the first mate, Jack. His Royal Highness had always been the kind of lord who did not doubt the people he used. But when William saw the drunk Captain Jack, he felt uneasy. Jack could drink too much. He drank at least 4 to 5 pounds of alcohol in a day. If not for the fact that he was the only talented captain in the City of Dawn, William would not have made him the commander of the Breaking Wave Legion or the first mate of the Dawn battleship. My lord, what should we do now? Should we look for trouble with the magical beasts? Lautner looked at William excitedly. He finally understood. It was useless to be old. His uncle was once a genius, but he was nothing in front of the Lord. It had to be said, if he wanted to become stronger, he had to rely on licking. Lautner had pondered for a long time. He had stayed in the Dark Knight City for a long time, but his progress had been slow. Ever since he came to the City of Dawn, he had been courting death more and more, but his progress had been very rapid. His progress in 1 year was faster than his previous years of training. In addition, William, who had only trained for less than 1.5 years, had become an advanced. It was a slap in the face, but the magical beast meat was really useful, and the heavenly treasures that His Highness brought along with him were really amazing. It actually gave him a chance to break through to the advanced level. After William killed the cloud-gulping python boss, he also picked some precious herbs. These herbs were not very useful to the players. They could increase their attributes and experience points after eating them. But to the NPCs, they were treasures. Stormy Island's mana was very dense, and it was considered an undeveloped place. Magical fruits and herbs could be found everywhere. Magical beasts were quite intelligent and would devour magical potions that were rich in mana. However, most magical potions and magical plants were preserved. When the players became more knowledgeable, various ways to earn money gradually appeared. The prerequisite was that they could go to dangerous places to collect magic herbs and sell them to the NPCs who would not cheat them. After all, in this world where power was respected, if you collected precious magical plants and sold them at a high price, the NPCs would not mind becoming thieves or assassins. What? Are you trying to cause trouble? William glanced at him. He had casually plucked a middle-level magic herb, and he was this excited? I don't even want to eat it. Lautner rubbed his hands together and chuckled. How is it stirring up trouble? The key is that those magical herbs and magical plants are often found in places where magical beasts gather. Our Lord has already become a high-level mage, so why don't we go and deal with him? Moreover, after killing the magical beasts, the remaining value is also very high. I believe that it won't be too much of a problem for you to kill high-level magical beasts. You've been very arrogant recently. I'm the one who broke through to the advanced, not you. William's heart twitched. He did not need magic potions. He could use the instance dungeon crystals to level up. Especially since he had to maintain the balance of the magical beasts, he definitely wasn't afraid of those guys. However, when it came to potions and magical plants, William fell into deep thought. Recently, he seemed to have forgotten the value of magic potions. He did not care about them, but his subordinates needed them. It was not right to only focus on magical beasts. If an NPC wanted to level up, it would depend on the quality of the potion. In particular, he knew of a good place where there were plenty of magic herbs and magic plants, but it was too dangerous. When William thought of this, he nodded thoughtfully at Lautner. Burn Cinder, come with us. Let's walk around and see if there are any good things on the island. Yes, my lord. Burn Cinder immediately sat up and grasped his long and narrow Dragon Slayer blade tightly. He had a look of obedience on his face. William glanced at him. Burn Cinder was also level 69, but the magic potions he consumed were ordinary. After coming here, he was either fighting or training hard. He did not have as much trouble as Lautner, it had to be said. Legendary NPCs who had lost their memories were really good. Not only was their loyalty high, but they were also very diligent in their training because of the habits of their previous selves. William was also very clear about Burn Cinder's previous self. He had been a small character since young and was used to a hard life. He often knew how to cherish time more than others. But pure-blooded elves like Lautner, time was nothing. No, I have to change the way the elves view time. Now, other than the elven soldiers in the Legion, the elves in the territory have the mindset of taking one day at a time. This won't do. But I can't change the nature of the elves for now. Perhaps the darkness invasion will cause them to train hard. Sigh, I'm a lord. Since I've become an advanced, it's not a big deal to give some benefits to my subordinates. The sooner they become advanced, the easier it will be for me. Anyway, the Thunder God Ring is not going anywhere. William looked at the increasingly excited Lautner and suddenly sighed. He led the two of them out of the camp. He completely ignored the players who wanted to follow him. What's with that look? Have I fallen out of favor? Lautner was horrified to discover something. He did not know why, but he suddenly had a terrible thought. Ever since Augustine had been resurrected, the Lord seemed to care about him even more. For example, he, Odom, and even the other legion commanders were no longer valued by the Lord. Lautner looked at him from head to toe a few times, then touched his slightly stubbled face. He frowned and said, "This doesn't make sense. Even if Her Highness likes handsome men, he can't be compared to me in terms of appearance." Burned Cinder pricked up his ears and thought to himself, "Impressive. Although the Lord spoke softly, we were all professionals. Does he think that we are deaf? But I'm new here. Even though I can't remember how I came here, it's best to pretend that I did not hear him." As for whether the Lord liked men or not, Burned Cinder pondered for a while. He did not mind. It did not matter if it was a man or a woman. Anyway, he respected the Lord from the bottom of his heart. The Lord could do whatever he wanted. William walked in front with a gloomy face. He felt that he had to teach this uncle a lesson. Furthermore, the recent rumors in the city of Dawn were not good. Why did everyone think that he liked men? How was that possible? He was an outstanding member of the Lord's Legion. When he was young, he would blush when he touched a girl's finger. As for touching hands now, he did not feel anything. The three of them walked on the dangerous stormy island. It was not very safe. In a short period of time, they walked southeast for tens of miles. They often encountered various kinds of magical beasts and even advanced magical beasts. If William had not broken through to the advanced level and had a fierce and murderous aura, they would have fought all the way. After all, it was not a large legion that was traveling. When a magical beast saw small animals, they would often be interested in taking a bite of them. But 3 hours later, William was still pretending. He swayed left and right, and coincidentally, he arrived at the edge of a bottomless canyon. Hence, the three of them looked down at the same time. Gulp. They gulped at the same time. William was the first to react. He pointed at the swamp below. There were purple flowers growing on the swamp, and a magical halo was blooming. Without a doubt, those were magic potions, and they were advanced magic potions. Hence, he laughed and said, "Uncle, do you want the magic potions?" "Yes." Lautner's voice started to tremble. He felt as though he could not hold his sword. "Then why don't you go down and attract the attention of the beasts? I'll help you pick the magic potions." William narrowed his eyes. "Me again?" The corners of Lautner's lips twitched. Why was it not Burned Cinder? Why was he always the one attracting the attention of the beasts? Moreover, what was below? "Prince William, didn't you see other monsters besides the magic potions?" You might not believe it. There were huge earthworms below, and they had sharp teeth. They were a few meters long, and they were entangled together. They did not know if they were mating or if they were just like this. There was also a type of huge crab on both sides of the cliff. From time to time, they would extend their huge claws in an attempt to kill some creatures, the strength of their claws. TSK, TSK. The troll did not want to try anyway. The depths of the canyon were very disgusting. It was as if it was filled with strange creatures from the mythological era. It was as if they had not completely evolved. There were many monsters without eyes and noses. They were entangled together and gathered in this canyon. But to Lautner, this was far more disgusting than a battlefield, but the most important thing was, Lautner did not expect that they would find a magic potion after wandering around. And it was an advanced magic potion. As an executive, he knew that until now, there were only some beginner magic potions in the City of Dawn, and they were cultivated by fairies. Although there were many of them, the quality was too low. Lautner had long reached the intermediate level, but he did not have any intermediate magic potions. Now that he had found an advanced magic potion, it meant that it was time for him to break through to the advanced. I'll take the gamble. For the magic potion, I can't let Prince William look down on me. Lautner took a deep breath. He took out a rope and wrapped it around a tree. He wrapped the other end around his waist and jumped down. At the same time, he could not help but laugh. The magic potions grew in the swamp. There seemed to be no monsters around, but he was not stupid. There must be more ferocious monsters in the swamp. Otherwise, the magic potions would have been eaten long ago. He would rather attract the firepower. He was not willing to collect the magic potions. William and Lautner did not care about what he was thinking. They stretched their necks to look down. They saw a dazzling battle energy blossoming in the deep and damp canyon. Wherever Lautner passed, the crabs that were hiding on the cliffs would suddenly shoot out their big pincers, wanting to snap him in half. But not only was his speed faster, but after he activated his battle energy shield, his defense was so high that it made one's hair stand on end. These beginner magical beasts could not break his defense, although this place was disgusting. But it was obvious that these magical beasts that lived in the mythological era were not very powerful. Lautner could kill many strange-looking monsters with a wave of his sword energy. As Lautner attracted more and more monsters, he was about to be surrounded. William glanced at the happy Burned Cinder and suddenly pushed him. There was a scream. Burned Cinder fell into the encirclement, and the entire canyon started to shake. Large earthworms burrowed into the ground. All kinds of strange creatures disappeared at this moment. Burned Cinder and Lautner could not help but look at the swamp. Huge white tentacles suddenly appeared. They understood that they were not there to attract the monster's firepower. Instead, they were there as bait. Mythological creature? Swamp octopus. When a mountain-sized creature gradually emerged from the swamp, both of them could not help but retreat frantically. That was the aura of an advanced. It was a creature from the mythological era. Chapter 185. It was a giant swamp octopus with 9 claws that were more than 10 meters long. Its body was as white as bones, and it emitted an indescribable stench. The canyon was very dark, and no one knew how big the swamp was. Lautner and Burned Cinder were shocked to see such a huge creature hiding underneath. The aura of a high-level creature was so strong that it was suffocating. Logically speaking, there were records of such creatures. Although the legendary continent was huge, there were all sorts of magical creatures that people had seen and recorded in the Magical Beast Encyclopedia. However, this swamp octopus and many other creatures in the canyon were things that they had never seen before. At that moment, they thought of the many dragon beasts that they had seen. Naturally, they thought that these creatures were from the mythological era. The moment the giant swamp octopus appeared, 3 of its huge tentacles swatted at the 2 of them, attempting to swallow the 2 portions of fast food. The swamp octopus was puzzled. Where did these 2 idiots come from? Ever since its parents had died of old age, it had lived on Stormy Island for many years. There were very few creatures that fell into this canyon. Usually, it could only eat some big earthworms, big crabs, and big spiders to pass its days. Today, there were actually 2 portions of magical and delicious fast food. TSK, it would be a waste not to eat such a good meal. Ultimate move. In the face of such a crisis, the 2 of them shouted and used all their strength. At that moment, flames and holy light bloomed at the same time. Facing a high-level creature, they used all their strength and managed to cut open many wounds on the tentacles of the octopus. An ear-piercing scream echoed through the entire canyon. The magical beasts in the darkness all shivered and hid. High-level creatures were very strong. However, this did not mean that the intermediate-level creatures could not resist them, especially for Lautner and Burned Cinder, who were half a step into the advanced level. Under the stinging pain, the giant octopus frantically swung its huge tentacles. One after another, black shadows slammed down. The wet soil on the ground was smashed into a huge, deep pit, and the splashing muddy water could even injure many beginner professions. However, Lautner and Burned Cinder were not weak. They were like 2 agile monkeys. While dodging, they took the opportunity to counterattack, causing great damage to the octopus. In a short period of time, the 2 of them were unharmed. The 2 of them were unscathed and had even almost chopped off a tentacle. "Be careful," Burned Cinder shouted and released his battle energy shield. The swamp octopus used its 4 tentacles to support its body. The huge mouth on its abdomen was as terrifying as an abyss, and its densely packed fangs were like black holes. Rumble! A thick black light roared out. It brushed past the 2 of them and instantly blasted a huge hole in the cliff. Half of the canyon began to tremble. Such a fierce offensive made it difficult for the 2 of them to move forward. The blacklight magic cannons fired one after another. Who could withstand this? Fortunately, after shooting for a while, the tentacle monster seemed to be a little weak and continued to use its tentacles to attack wildly. On the other hand, Lautner was suffering in silence. Initially, it wasn't a big deal for him to attract the firepower of those disgusting little monsters. However, who would have thought that there would be a gigantic creature in the swamp that couldn't control itself? Come out later. When you come out later, His Highness will go to the cauliflower. When the time comes, you can go up. High level should fight with high level. Why'd I feel like I've been tricked? As for Burn Cinder, he felt a little wronged. He thought that he could sacrifice everything for his lord, be it his body or his life. But he was just happily watching the show. What did you mean by pushing me down? Unknowingly, Burn Cinder felt a piercing pain in his heart. However, he would not betray his lord, so he vented all his anger on this monster. William was watching with great interest. All three of them were bosses. It would not be easy for anyone to kill each other. A level 89 swamp octopus. TSK. It's actually a creature from the mythological era. Although its level is quite high, it's a pity that it only has a Grandmaster bloodline. Otherwise, it wouldn't be so easy to be bait. Magical beasts have an advantage over intelligent races. One of them is their size. High-level magical beasts of this size usually have tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of health points. However, if their size is too big, it means that they are not agile enough. Otherwise, why would they need to swat these two bastards as if they were flies? More importantly, magical beasts have intelligence. However, intelligent magical beasts can't be compared to intelligent races. Even a quick-witted troll is more intelligent than them. William's view of magical beasts was very wise. For creatures that did not have high intelligence, as long as he found bait and exposed them, he would have a chance to kill them in one strike. After all, no matter how good a magical beast is, if it sees two hot dogs killing its snacks, it will be unhappy. Although it will endure for a while at the start, when it realizes that there is no danger, it will arrogantly rush out and eat them. William had already picked up his bow and was ready to shoot. He did not want to take a leap of faith for a cloud-gulping python. Even if he did not manage to hit it, it did not matter if it was swallowed into its stomach. However, this small creature in front of him was different. He did not dare to jump into its huge mouth that was filled with countless teeth. Burn Cinder and Lautner were panting. Even Lautner was dizzy from being slapped. If not for the fact that the ground under their feet was slightly moist, they would have been slapped silly. The two of them were middle-level bosses, but the big creature in front of them was an advanced boss. They could dodge the tentacles again and counterattack again and again. But they did not have the chance to get close to this creature. This swamp octopus was in the swamp. If the two of them got close, they would definitely enter the swamp. If they were careless and got pulled into the swamp, they would definitely die. But they did not have enough battle energy, so the frequency of their attacks gradually decreased. The movement speed of the two of them became slower and slower, and the damage of their attacks became lower. Instantly, the octopus, who had been using 3 or 4 tentacles, suddenly used 6 tentacles. In an instant, the two of them were slapped into the ground. But at this moment, a bolt of lightning flashed. Bang! A huge bloody hole appeared on the head of the giant octopus. Sticky liquid flowed out continuously. It did not give the octopus a chance to react. A figure appeared on top of the octopus. He was holding a 2-meter-long thunder spear. He suddenly stabbed it downwards. Boom! Dazzling lightning flashed. A huge bloody hole appeared. Countless electric arcs jumped on the surface of the octopus body. Even the tentacles that were about to wrap around Lautner and Burn Cinder loosened from the electric shock. Roar! An ear-piercing scream pierced through the canyon like a sound wave. William was stunned. He did not manage to kill the octopus. His luck was gone, and the fury of the Thunder God was not triggered. All sorts of damage stacked together, and the octopus only lost 80,000 to 90,000 health points. The octopus still had more than 50,000 health points left. But he was not a lucky person, but he was a rich person. He took out a wine barrel and threw it into the wound. Then he leaped into the sky. Gosh, is this magical beast worth the price? Lautner and Burned Cinder immediately dug a hole. Within 3 seconds, they dug a huge and deep hole. They dived into the hole. They did not care if the large earthworm was disgusting or not. They just wanted to hide first. So the swamp octopus, who had just regained his senses, was about to wave his tentacles in anger. A ray of light emitted from his body in the next second. An indescribable magical power instantly caused the giant octopus to become bigger and bigger. Boom! There was an explosion. Flesh and blood were completely vaporized in the white light. It was a brainless explosion formation formed by 3 magical crystals. That was how it was after a full 3 minutes. William glanced at the valley that had been reduced to ashes. He grinned. "You're not giving face to a rich person. I'll use 10,000 gold coins to kill you." 3 magical crystals. One crystal was worth more than 3,000 gold coins. It was priceless. It was a strategic treasure that only the kingdom had. It was not used to kill magical beasts. It was used to power the magic cannons. At the very least, it could be used as a magical equipment. No one used it as a one-time explosion. It was simple. William was a rich person. It was a luxury to use it to kill magical beasts. Professionals killed magical beasts for their meat and magic crystals. But did William do it for the magical beasts? He did it for the magic potions. But he glanced at the few remaining magic potions and flew down expressionlessly. No way. He had to find the magic crystals that had been blown away. Otherwise, he would suffer a huge loss. Lautner and Burned Cinder emerged from the ground. They were covered in mud and blood. After digging into the ground, they fought with the large earthworms before running out. They saw the blood and mud on both sides of the valley and some destroyed tentacles. They were speechless. They could only say that the Lord was too reckless. Or rather, both of them knew that they had come for the magic potions. Since they wanted to collect the potions, they could not let go of the marsh octopus. Now that they had injured it, if it sank into the swamp, they would not be able to do anything to it. And in that situation, no one dared to collect the magic potions. If they were careless and were pulled into the swamp by the tentacles, they would definitely die. What are you looking at? Look for the magic crystals. William flew in the air and carefully collected the purple flowers. There had been hundreds of magic potions. After the explosion, there were only a dozen of them left. But this thing was really a treasure. Marsh flower, level, advanced, quality, high, effect. There's a chance to permanently increase the 4-dimensional attributes by 3 to 5 points. Can increase 30,000 to 50,000 experience points. Effect. Within 10 hours, the user will have double experience points. Effect. It can be used for the training of advanced professionals or for the training and breakthrough of middle-level professionals. Limitation. The chosen ones can only use it 3 times. After that, there will be no increase in attributes and experience points, but the user will have double experience points. A treasure that can permanently increase the attributes is a good thing. It's a pity that there are no potion fairies in this place. Otherwise, I would have struck it rich. Magic potions. In my previous life, these things were extremely expensive to me. But now, I'm going to eat all the magic potions on Stormy Island. I don't believe that the 4-dimensional attributes will not explode. William laughed and placed all the magic potions into his space ring. "My lord, have you found the magic crystals?" William turned his head. He thought that the magic crystals had been destroyed or blown away. "No, look at this." Lautner pointed at the cliff. The explosion just now had actually blasted out a wall. It was a man-made wall. Chapter 186. William was dumbfounded. He did not expect Stormy Island to have such a thing. How is this possible? This is an island from the mythological era. How can there be buildings? William and his companions used their swords to clean up the walls. They could clearly see the walls that were full of engravings. The 3 of them swallowed hard. The strange magical beasts on the island proved that this was definitely an island from the mythological era. During that era, the gods ruled the world. The gods' continent had yet to be divided into 9 parts. The elves seemed to have been born, but their numbers were extremely small. They could only live under the protection of the World Tree. There were no records of the humans, but logically speaking, there should have been. But at that time, the humans were food for various wild beasts and magical beasts. There was not much development. As for the dwarves and the harpies, they seem to have existed in the age of the gods as well. However, the War of the Gods had left a huge gap in their lineage, causing many intelligent races to suffer heavy losses. They had to struggle at death's door for thousands of years in the age of the giant dragon. When the tiger was not at home, the great dragon was the king. In the eyes of the gods, they were just some large insects. Perhaps a few great dragons were a threat, but in the gods' era, there were many creatures that were on par with the great dragons. There were behemoths, titans, cyclopes, superior manticore beasts, and so on. These creatures not only existed during the mythological era, but they had also been preserved to this day. Although many races no longer appeared, it did not mean that they were extinct. At least William knew that many places had these creatures. For example, the behemoths in the extreme north lived in a world of ice and snow. In that harsh living environment, very few humans could reach it. Only a few snow elves knew where the behemoths lived. They were a powerful race that could tear great dragons apart with their bare hands. They often caught a white dragon and ate it. They seem to have been active during the gods' era. During the great dragon era, they were almost destroyed. Hence, their numbers were extremely small, and it was difficult to see them. They were not considered magical beasts because they had language and intelligence. As for the Titan race, they were even more impressive. William had read some strange history books. Some of the powerful Titans seemed to have fought against the gods. He wasn't sure if it was an exaggeration, because he had never seen such a powerful Titan in his previous life. As for the Cyclopes, there are many more of them, and they are also very powerful. Rumor has it that they are the ancestors of the trolls, but I feel that this is a misunderstanding. High-rank manticores are different from manticores. The manticores from the mythological era seem to be on par with giant dragons, but the current manticores don't seem to have any high-rank manticores anymore. Their bloodline has generally declined, and they are even reduced to mounts. William once had such mounts that could fly. These magical beasts were very intelligent and gluttonous. Under certain circumstances, they could be tamed, especially when the three human empires all had manticore armies, which were extremely powerful. Clean up this place and see where the door is. William thought to himself. It was very likely that this was something left behind by the gods. Either that, or it was a ruin left behind by the elves or the harpies. William had an idea. He didn't expect that there would be other treasures here. He had only wanted to obtain a thunder god ring and devour the resources here. But he didn't expect to encounter a ruin. In his previous life, when a marsh octopus died, he didn't know that there would be a ruin on the other side of the canyon. He had to admit that the three magical crystals were not wasted. It was a great deal. If it's really a ruin, we'll be rich. Lautner's eyes lit up. He and Burnman used their battle energy to clean up the mud on the wall. They also killed the magic crabs that were hiding in the mud. This group of abnormal creatures had one crab claw and one crab claw. They were similar to cave crabs. When a creature walked by, they would suddenly stretch out their large pincers to crush it to death. Then, they would eat the fast food. But these low-level magical beasts were a great threat to others. To William and his companions, it was not a big deal. The three of them worked hard to clean up the mud on the wall. After 3 hours, they had cleaned up a large area, and some murals that had been preserved for a very long time were revealed. William took a few steps back to take a look. His eyes kept emitting light. The murals had colors that had never faded. It was hard to imagine what kind of existence had left behind these ruins. It was daytime. A black hole appeared in the sky. A palm that covered the sky appeared. It was as if it was going to tear the black hole apart. Some races appeared on the ground. There were titans, giant behemoths, great dragons, and some humanoid creatures that rose from the ground and broke through the clouds. They seemed to be trying to stop the huge palm. A huge war was about to begin. There were no words or records on murals. There was only an unimaginable and shocking scene. Lautner and Burnman looked at the murals and gulped. Lautner could not help but ask, "What is this? Is this a war from the mythological era?" I didn't expect there to be a record of the mythological era. If I'm not mistaken, this should have been left tens of thousands of years ago, or even hundreds of thousands of years ago. Birdman took a deep breath. He was not an ordinary fool. As an outstanding boss, even if he was poor, he had learned a lot. He knew that there were 3 recorded eras in the gods' continent. There was also a legendary mythological era. No one knew how long ago the mythological era was, but he knew that the beginning of the first era was more than 30,000 years ago, but there was a gap between the mythological era and the Great Dragon era. Only a few legends about the gods have been passed down to this day. Lautner was also in disbelief that something so ancient had actually been left behind here. He suddenly pointed at the 2 creatures in the mural. If I'm not wrong, those should be a behemoth and a giant dragon. What is that giant hand in the black hole? How could it cause these 2 enemies to ally together to fight against it? Dark creatures? Devils. It can't be dark creatures. I've never seen such a powerful dark creature. If this hand appeared in the dark world, it could probably smash the Devil Lord into pieces. Then it must be a devil. But that's not right. Devils should be underground creatures. The 2 of them looked at each other and chatted endlessly. They were very interested in gossiping. William stroked his chin and could not help but ponder. Did I misunderstand the gods and devils? Could it be that the invaders were devils and the gods were the natives? When the war started, the devils were no match for the gods, and they even fought to an alternate dimension. But the devils left behind a backup plan and allowed their race to enter the underground world. Then, they started an endless war of invasion. But that's not right. From the murals, I can see that the various creatures of the gods' continent were at a disadvantage. Moreover, not everyone could enter the alternate dimension. The giant behemoths seemed to be the main fighting force, but they could not fly. Or is this just a part of the records of the gods' era? Or is this a history that is even more ancient than the gods' era? William pondered for a long time. He did not believe that this mural was the war of the gods' retreat from the continent. As he looked at the mural, he began to feel even more depressed. No matter what, it seemed like he couldn't open this ruin anymore. It was so well preserved, and the color of the mural didn't even fade. What kind of amazing existence had left this behind? How was he supposed to open it? Chapter 187. It was impossible for William not to be tempted by a ruin that might be from the mythological era. He had already used a magic transmission scroll to inform the people in the camp not to act rashly and to guard their homes. This is a secret. There's no need to tell others. If the army invades, this place will be a restricted area. William was very greedy. He was not interested in letting others steal his treasures. He had a feeling that he might not be able to open the entrance to the ruin. Lautner and Burnsinder nodded. They started to dig the ruin with all their might, trying to find the entrance. But the ruin was too big. The cliff on the west side of the canyon seemed to be a wall of the ruins. William had flown to the top of the ruins and tried to dig a hole. In the end, after digging for more than 10 meters, he was met with an extremely hard metal wall. Even an epic weapon could not leave a mark on it. But the prince was not satisfied. He used the thunder blade to dig dozens of holes, but he still could not find the entrance. He could only give up. Such a hard metal wall. The magic on it has not dissipated. What treasure is inside? Can we bring it back to make weapons? Burnsinder was used to living a poor life. No matter what treasure he saw, his eyes would shine. When he first discovered that the ruin was indestructible, he did not think that there was any treasure inside. He wanted to move the wall away. William and Lautner looked at each other. That was a good idea. According to the hardness of the wall and the dense magic, it would definitely be very powerful. But William also understood one thing. Whether it was mithril, orichalcum, adamantine, or various magic ores, they could all be used to make beginner, intermediate, advanced, and even more powerful weapons. It seemed that an advanced weapon could easily break a low-level weapon. But it was also possible that the 2 weapons were made of the same material. Then why was there such a huge difference in hardness? The key was the forging method and the sequence. 3 types of rare metals could be combined into dozens of forging methods. Among them, the most complicated forging method could even turn 3 very ordinary metals into high-grade weapons and equipment. So although the metal looked very hard, it could be made of various types of orichalcum, mithril, and other metals. But the forging method was more powerful, and the enchantment method was more advanced. They dug for 3 days. The three of them cleared the entire west side of the canyon. Finally, William found a huge ring-shaped door. The three of them stared dumbfoundedly at the tiny holes on the giant door. There were so many of them. There were more than 100 of them. F***. Is this the way to open it? 180 magical energy crystals to activate it? Burned Cinder asked. 2 pairs of eyes looked at the almost lifeless prince at the same time. 180? William seemed expressionless, but his heart ached as he calculated in his heart. 1 for 1 was 1. 2 for 2 was 4. 540,000 gold coins per activation. Is this a robbery? William was not stupid. Ever since he saw this ring-shaped door, he knew how to open the ruins. But that's 180 magical crystals. Even if my family owns a mine, I can't be so greedy, can I? William's heart was bleeding, but he still had many magical crystals in his space ring. He had planned to use them as bombs. No one would be able to see it anyway, so he wasn't afraid of it being exposed. The two of them did not dare to make a decision on whether or not to open the ruins. However, using mana crystals to open the gate was much better than using incantations or other methods. William glanced at the two of them and hardened his heart. Open. Meanwhile, he took out magical crystals of similar sizes from his space ring and distributed them to the other two. The three of them then began to embed the crystals onto the door. 3 minutes passed. When William embedded the last crystal onto the ring-shaped door, the magic in the magical crystals disappeared at a speed visible to the naked eye. Tens of thousands of strands of magic flowed along the patterns on the door. In just 3 seconds, the magical crystals exploded into powder and scattered on the ground like white snowflakes. After a long while, there was no reaction from the door. William swallowed his saliva and clenched his fists. That's it. I spent 500,000 gold coins just to watch a snowstorm in a tropical rainforest. I don't have to spend so much money to travel across the legendary continent to the extreme north. Is it the problem with the stone? Burned Cinder raised his eyebrows. He walked over and kicked the stone that was stuck on the door. Crack! The door gently vibrated. The 5-meter-tall metal door opened a small gap. Lautner glanced at Burned Cinder. Didn't Burned Cinder know that he was a troublesome lackey? Didn't he leave this matter to him? William heaved a sigh of relief and happily patted Burned Cinder's shoulder. He did not expect the door to be so useless. It did not even have the ability to open a stone. Open the door. The three of them used their swords and sabers to open the door carefully. They were afraid that if they used the wrong amount of strength, it would be awkward if they closed the door again. Perhaps the Lord would kill them as a sacrifice to the heavens. The door opened. An ancient and boundless aura came from the door. There was no rotten smell, but it was definitely not a pleasant smell. It was pitch black inside. They could not see anything. Lautner stretched his neck and looked inside. He swallowed his saliva and said, "What if there are monsters inside? What are you afraid of? You go in and explore the path." William looked at him with disdain. As an executive, he should be brave. Me again? Lautner's heart ached. William stroked his chin. It was not good for the three of them to go in. If they were really trapped inside, they would be dead meat. So he said, "You don't have to explore the path. I'll give you 180 magical crystals. You guard the door. Be careful that the door is closed. Burned Cinder, go and explore." "Yes, my lord. Your flag will guide me in the direction." Since Burned Cinder was determined to be the #1 bootlicker of the Lord, he could not hesitate. He glanced at the cowardly Lautner. He snorted and placed his right hand on his Dragon Slayer's sword. Then he strode forward. Lautner's eyes widened. When he saw William following behind, he could not help but think, there's something wrong with this lad. Is he coveting the position of executive? This won't do. I have to discuss with Odom when I return to the City of Dawn. We have to suppress this newcomer. It was pitch black inside the door. But the two of them were not ordinary people, especially basic magic. They had to learn the fireball skill. There was no need to waste too much experience points on this skill. They did not need to level up either. They just had to learn it for lighting. Burn Cinder's sub-occupation was not weak. A fireball that was half a meter large floated above his head. The light from the fireball was enough for the two of them to see more than 10 meters away. But when they looked at it, William could not help but ponder. Wasn't it a little too big? A corridor that was at least 20 meters wide? This was not a ruin. Was this a temple? It was possible. They could only see a small part of the wall. The murals on the wall did not mean anything. It could really be a temple. The most ridiculous thing was that in order to pursue authenticity, when players entered unknown ruins, there would be no information popping up to tell them where they had entered. Only after clearing the game or finding various kinds of information would the information box pop up with information. The distance between the two of them was less than 1 meter. They continued walking forward. They did not know whether they had walked 100 meters or a few hundred meters. The light from the door behind them became dimmer and dimmer until it disappeared. At this moment, William and Lautner could only hear their own footsteps and heavy breathing. The two sides of the corridor were not empty. Various elegant and mysterious patterns, murals, and even incomprehensible words gradually appeared. These words are from the mythological era. William narrowed his eyes. He had seen these words before, and he even recognized them. But everything was based on the premise that if he could find a book and decipher it, only then would the gods believe that he had mastered these words and let him read them out easily. But that was in my previous life. Where can I find those books now? Especially in my previous life, I only managed to decipher less than 200 words from the mythological era. William had a headache. Perhaps he had recognized many of the words in his previous life, but he was a player in his previous life. There was no need for him to memorize them like an NPC. As long as he deciphered some words, even if they looked like scribbles, he would be able to recognize them easily in the future. But that was the ability given to him by the system. Now, he really could not remember them. However, the two of them gradually went deeper into the corridor. When they saw another metal door, they looked at a huge golden symbol on the left. What is this? Is it dangerous? Burn Cinder muttered to himself. Whether it was dangerous or not, it depended on whether the Lord wanted to enter. Even if there was a god inside, he had to follow. It's really... William gasped. He had seen the symbol in front of him many times. God, he was not wrong. This was the temple, and it was an intact temple. William thought about the mural in the corridor. Clouds, thunder, and blue light. These pictures have appeared many times. Could it be the temple of the thunder god? William gulped. He had intended to obtain the thunder god ring. But now he had not obtained the ring, and he had entered the temple of the thunder god by mistake. My lord, are we going in? Burn Cinder turned and asked. William pondered for a while. Let's go in. 180 magical crystals came from nowhere. This is the first time it's opened. No matter what, we have to obtain some treasures. How can we return empty-handed? William made up his mind. If he did not obtain treasures worth more than 500,000 gold coins from the temple, he would definitely not come out. I've never made a losing deal before. It's just a shrine. It's not like I haven't been there before. Although the shrines I've been to before were all damaged, the rules are pretty much the same. As long as I'm careful and don't enter, I won't die here with my experience of dying thousands of times. William clenched his fists and pushed the huge door with all his might. Creak, creak, creak. The huge door gently moved. Burn Cinder saw that the Lord's face was turning red. He hurried forward to help. Together, they pushed the heavy door open in an instant. The lights were dazzling. Dazzling lights shone in front of both of them. William vaguely saw a 100-meter-tall giant looking at him. The giant's body emitted lightning, and he looked majestic. Boom! A dazzling red lightning flashed across the sky. Dark clouds covered Stormy Island. The heavy rain was boundless. Countless magical beasts roared. It was like a stampede of beasts.